My best friend made a fake Instagram account under my name just so he could cyberbully a girl that rejected him at our university. And now pretty much the entire school is turned against me, and at this point I don't know what to do. Welcome back to Am I the Jerk? Dude, this first story is a wild ride, let me tell you something. This just goes to show you that sometimes your best friends can betray you in ways you never even expected. So if you're loving the content that we're making right now, then please hit that subscribe button and don't miss out on anything coming up soon. In fact, one of our recent users even said like, whoa, I really love the content you're making, and really we appreciate that. So sit back and enjoy because this first story is a bumpy ride. Let's get started. Okay, I genuinely cannot tell anymore if I'm the victim here or if I just completely ruined someone's life by overreacting. For some context, I'm in university and I have no social media presence basically. I mostly keep to myself and I just focus on classes. Also, it's really important to note that I'm gay and completely closeted, and nobody at university knows. But about 2 months ago, people on campus started acting weird towards me. Friends became distant, people stopped talking when I walked up, and one girl in my seminar looked genuinely disgusted by me. Then someone finally asked why I was bothering a girl in our department. Now, I was completely confused because I barely knew who this girl was, and also I'm literally gay, like I'm not interested in her. And that's when someone showed me an Instagram account using my full name, my department, and a picture of me from a university page. The account had apparently been sending this girl hateful messages for weeks after she rejected someone, and everybody thought it was me. Things exploded when she confronted me outside the student union in front of a crowd. She accused me of stalking and threatening her, and she reacted physically before I could even explain. I was so shocked that I couldn't even defend myself properly. The worst part was that the easiest way to prove I wasn't obsessed with her would have been outing myself publicly. And you know what? I'm just not ready to do that. Well, after that, people really started treating me like I was dangerous. Group members avoided me, people whispered when I walked by, and someone called me a creep loud enough for me to hear. Well, eventually I found out who made the account, and it was my best friend who I will call Mark. Apparently, she rejected Mark, and instead of handling it normally, he used my identity to attack her anonymously because he didn't want any consequences for himself. Now, when I confronted him, he barely seemed sorry. He really said that he thought I'd have his back because we were friends and that he was just hurt after the rejection. And honestly, I completely lost it, and I yelled at him in the middle of campus. I called him manipulative and pathetic for ruining my reputation because he literally couldn't handle rejection like an adult. Well, later that night, 2 of his roommates confronted me outside a parking structure for humiliating him publicly. They kept saying that a real friend would have protected him instead of betraying him. But now the university is getting involved. This girl reported the account, and I got called into a disciplinary meeting for Monday morning. The email mentioned a possible Title VI investigation, and I'm seriously terrified I could actually get suspended before they figure everything out. But honestly, part of me feels like this maybe is my fault. Mark was my best friend for years. Maybe screaming at him publicly instead of like helping him out was cruel. Maybe I should have handled it privately and protected him first instead of making everything worse. His friends keep saying that I abandoned him during the lowest point of his life. And now I genuinely can't tell if I acted like a victim when I should have acted like a friend. Now, part of why this is messing with my head so badly is because Mark wasn't just some random friend to me. When my dad died, he and his family were genuinely there for me during one of the worst periods of my life. They helped me out a lot emotionally and even financially a few times when things were really bad at home. And I honestly don't think I've ever forgotten that. So even though I know what he did was wrong, part of me still feels guilty for publicly turning against someone who was there for me when my life completely fell apart. So am I the jerk here? Because I really just don't know what to do anymore. Okay, holy crap, dude, this is not your friend. I understand he was there for you when like your dad died, but guess what? He literally stole your identity to go after some girl who rejected him. Like, this is no longer a situation where it's like, oh, but we're friends, I want to be good friends with him. Like, no, dude, throw him to the wolves. You're not friends with this guy. He doesn't care about you, clearly. Like, anybody trying to be like, wow, you embarrassed him, I can't believe you. They're completely glazing over the fact that this guy literally impersonated you and used your identity to try and attack this girl. Looks like friendship doesn't matter because, my God, he threw you completely under the bus. So dude, if you have any sense about you, I would not only kick this guy to the curb, but I would take whatever he used as like your identity and show every ounce of evidence to this university to prove that you are completely innocent. And no, yelling at someone in the courtyard is not like against university rules. Like, are you kidding me right now? You didn't do anything wrong. This guy's an idiot and he absolutely should be the one to get in trouble and not you. If you would like to submit your own stories, be sure to check out AmITheJerk.com/submit. That's your best place to submit your stories and get them on the channel, like you never know. We're always checking through those to find the best ones and put them in as much as we can. Also, subscribe to Am I the Jerk and subscribe to Am I the Genius. Everything will be linked down below in the description. And with that, let's get to the next story. My best friend's wife did something highly unethical at work, as she essentially exposed my financial dealings over to my ex, who now knows way more than I wanted her to. And at this point, I really just don't know what to do. Here's what's going on. Okay, I'm gonna try and make this as straightforward as possible. Due to my father's recent death, I came into a substantial amount of money. My best friend's wife, who I also consider a friend, works for an estate planning attorney. I also have a kid with my ex, and my ex and my best friend's wife got quite close when my ex and I were together. And even to this day, they still remain close. I went to my best friend's wife about the inheritance to set up like a meeting with her boss to discuss the estate planning, and honestly, I had a good meeting. We have set up a revocable trust for my kid with various contingencies and all this other stuff, and I've not really discussed this at all with my ex because I see it as none of her business. Well, my best friend's wife apparently told my ex about the things I was doing with my estate, and it's here that my ex called me furious. And just for context, we have split custody, but I pay child support due to making significantly more than my ex, and the inheritance has no impact whatsoever on my child support obligation. I then told my ex that first of all, this was none of her business, and second, she has no right to know about that. And when I pressed my ex about how she knew about any of this in the first place, she finally admitted that my best friend's wife had told her. Well, I called my best friend mad myself. His wife eventually called me and apologized, and she said she let a few things slip over drinks, and then when my ex pressed her, she gave her the details. She then begged me not to tell her boss, with my best friend making the same request. Now, I love both of these people and I understand mistakes can happen, but I'm also really upset, and I seriously do not know how to deal with this. What should I do? Okay, dude, I would be telling on this lady yesterday. There's no way I would ever let this slide. Seriously, if she's able to give out your confidential information over drinks, then God knows what else she's done to other clients. Like, good Lord. Like, if I was in your shoes, I would definitely tell the boss, but also get like a new estate planner or like a financial advisor, because you clearly can't trust this woman. She betrayed your trust entirely. And in my mind, this is just the tip of the iceberg. If you do anything with your life, like buy a car or go on vacation, who's to say that this best friend's wife won't spill the beans again to your ex? Like, that is really toxic and super gross in my opinion, and that is not something I would ever let slide. But I will say, if you do say something to the boss, it's probably going to like blow up this friendship, which in my opinion is completely fine. I would happily give this friendship up if it means I can find a financial advisor that's not going to, oh, I don't know, betray my trust. Like, dude, all she had to do was keep her mouth shut and none of this would have been a problem. Like, just imagine if this wife was a doctor or something and you went to see her for a private medical issue, and then she runs off and gets drunk and tells your ex about it. Like, what are we talking about here? So in my opinion, this is completely unethical and there's no good excuse. She deserves to get in trouble, and you deserve to have a way better friend than this. Am I the jerk for treating my dad like a child after dealing with years of him refusing to do anything around the farm that we live on? Because honestly, it's getting exhausting and I just don't know what to do anymore. I'm a 22-year-old female and I live on a farm with my parents. My dad has always been very traditional with his views about gender roles, and he firmly believes that men should be the providers and women should stay home, clean the house, cook, and take care of the family. The problem is that my dad never actually earned enough money to support our family on a single income, and because of that, my mom had to work full-time while also doing most of the cooking, cleaning, and raising 3 kids. On top of that, my dad is honestly one of the laziest people I've ever met. My brother is in the army and lives away from home, and my sister is a nurse who works long hours. I'm the only one still living at home, so over the years I've tried to take some pressure off my mom. The issue is that whenever something needs doing around the property, my dad will say, yeah, I'll do it, but then guess what? He doesn't do it. Days turned into weeks, and weeks turned into months. Eventually, I'll get frustrated and we'll have a massive argument. Only then will he like suddenly decide to start the job. He'll go down to the local hardware store, put on a big performance about being a farmer fixing things, spend a bunch of money on stuff that we don't need, and then come home with even more junk. He's a huge hoarder and just constantly buys things that he has no use for. And then the job gets done like halfway. Most of the time, I end up having to go back over and just fix it myself. Honestly, the hardest part of repairing anything on our property isn't the actual repair. It's undoing whatever my dad already did to it. it. Because of this, I've spent years teaching myself how to fix fences, do the plumbing, rewire electric gates, service a tractor, mow the lawn, spray the weeds, use a chainsaw, and a bunch of general maintenance jobs, as well as the smaller household repairs, like changing out light fittings or door handles or whatever. In fact, lately, I've stopped asking him to do things because I know it won't happen. I'll either do it myself or pay someone who actually knows what they're doing. My dad says that I treat him like a child and that I don't respect him. He says I undermine him and I make him feel useless, and he's even gone as far as saying that my attitude is one of the reasons his marriage to my mom is failing. From my perspective, I'm just exhausted after 22 years of hearing, "Oh, I'll do it later," and then either doing it myself or fixing his mistakes afterwards. So seriously, am I the jerk in this situation? Because I don't know what to do anymore. No, you're not the jerk. Your dad sounds like an idiot in my opinion. I always hate these kind of people where they're like, "Oh yeah, I'll do it," and then they never get around to doing it. But then when they're in public, they try to act like a big shot who's like, "Oh yeah, I'm a farmer," or whatever their profession is. Meanwhile, behind the scenes, they're lazy and they don't do anything. And they're constantly shifting blame to everybody else except for themselves. Like, buddy, if your marriage is falling apart, that's on you. That's not on your 22-year-old daughter who definitely doesn't want to live there. And also, the only reason he's being treated like a child is because he's acting like one. So no, you're not the jerk. This guy sounds super lazy, and I think I'd be pretty pissed off at him as well. Today, my dad accidentally sent me a voice text message, essentially confirming my lifelong fear that he's been playing favorites this entire time. Because after I found out that he's planning to have a vacation to Thailand with his stepdaughter, I started to realize that me and my sister have always been neglected and never really cared for. And at this point, I don't know how to handle this information, and I just don't know what to do moving forward. Let me start from the very beginning just to give a bit of context. For starters, I'm 34 years old, and my parents divorced when I was 5. My dad cheated on my mom with the woman he's now married to, and she already had a daughter whom he later adopted. My sister and I are his biological children. I'm 34 and my biological sister is 36 and our stepsister is 38. And let me tell you something, growing up the favoritism was obvious. My stepmom and stepsister openly mocked my mom, and we were treated differently in ways that were really hard to articulate as kids, but also impossible to ignore. My dad barely paid child support, and my mom had to take him to court multiple times just to get what she was owed. My sister, who took the brunt of the Cinderella treatment, stopped talking to him nearly 15 years ago, and I've kept the relationship alive, though I don't know fully why I did that. My stepsister went to a fairly expensive private college. She dropped out, had a Vegas wedding, got divorced, remarried, and now lives in a beautiful home with her husband and 2 kids right down the road from my dad and stepmom. We've always assumed my dad helped financially through all of it, but we've never actually had a confirmation of that. Meanwhile, my sister and I paid for our own colleges, we paid for our own cars and our own homes, and the only time we got help from our mom was when she could afford it. Well, 2 years ago, my dad, probably drunk, texted me asking how he could be a better father, which is like, dude, it's a little late, pal. The message caught me completely off guard because he's never acknowledged being anything less than amazing. I then told him I was jealous of the relationship he has with our stepsister, and the conversation basically fizzled out with zero follow-up. Well, recently, my fiance and I closed on our first home, and we're in the middle of planning our wedding. He hasn't offered to help with either, which is completely fine. I mean, I stopped expecting anything a long time ago, but what he did offer was to buy us groceries when he came to visit. And at this point, we live about 5.5, almost 6 hours away. Now, I hate to sound ungrateful because at its core, it is a nice gesture, but knowing how much he has likely supported my stepsister financially over the years, it still felt a little bit hollow. But either way, I appreciated it. I mean, free food is still free food. But unfortunately, those sentiments basically dissolved after this past week. My father accidentally sent me a voice text that was clearly meant for somebody else. In it, he talked about looking into an 11-day Viking cruise around Alaska with his wife, but then he realized it would be cheaper to take my stepsister, her husband, and their 2 kids to Thailand instead. The message was mostly him bragging about how much money he had saved and how much fun the trip with his grandkids would be. Now, honestly, I don't care about the money itself. Instead, I care about what it confirms. He's had the resources this entire time and has quietly directed them towards the family that he chose, while my sister and I handled every major life milestone on our own. If he helped pay for her education, weddings, home, and family vacations, while offering us a grocery run during our engagement and first home purchase, at that point, I honestly just don't think I have anything left to say to him. My sister checked out 15 years ago and has always told me that she's amazed that I kept trying. And you know what? I think I finally understand where she was coming from. At this point, I don't even want an apology for myself, and I definitely don't want money, although it would be a great start. What I really want is for him to apologize to my sister and my mom for how they were treated, but I know that's never going to happen. The icing on the cake is that I still need to move the rest of my belongings out of my mom's house in another state. My dad offered to drive everything out in his truck this weekend, which I genuinely appreciated, but he also mentioned he needs to get home early Sunday for a Father's Day brunch with his other family. So yeah, a retired man I see maybe like twice a year can only spare a day and a half because he has to get back for brunch. But hey, at least he offered to like stock a fridge. I mean, come on. I'm honestly at a loss for what to say to him. I'm hurt, but buying a house has been exhausting and I'm completely burned out mentally. Part of me wants to ask him directly whether he has financially supported my stepsister all these years. But another part of me feels like I already know the answer and I should stop hoping that he'll suddenly become a different person. So what do I do here? Do I confront him directly or do I just let the relationship quietly fade? I'm in my 30s right now and I just don't think I have another chance left in me to give to him. Unfortunately, I also have plans with him this weekend, so I feel like it needs to be addressed or just simply ignored because honestly, I'm not sure what other choices I might have. Yeah, in my opinion, I think you should probably take care of pretty much any like logistical things you need in the state he lives in. And once there's no strings attached and you have absolutely detached every physical belonging away from that man, only then for me would I even approach this topic and be like, hey, you hated us all along, right? You totally pick favorites with our stepsister. I need you to admit it. I need some kind of closure, you piece of crap. Come on now, just say it. Because dude, this is insane. This really is insane behavior. Like if the best he can give you is like a grocery run, meanwhile he's giving his stepkid like, I don't know, a trip to Thailand. Like bro, that is awful and there's just no excuse for that. He clearly didn't like you guys as much as his stepkids and clearly he failed as a father. So yeah, I completely understand why your sister checked out. She figured it out 15 years ago and it really is sad that you're just now figuring it out. Which I mean, good on you, at least you tried. You tried to see the benefit of the doubt and tried to like meet him somewhere in this situation, but he obviously doesn't care. I mean, he can barely make time for you in the first place. Like I really don't think there's much else you can expect from this man. So yeah, for me, I would make sure there's no strings attached and then I would confront him. I would tell him exactly how I feel. And I wouldn't hold back because what do I got to lose? I'm a fully grown adult and I take care of myself. This man would have no sway over my life in any way, shape, or form, nor can he affect it in a negative way by like punishing me, by like taking money away or getting rid of privileges. Like, dude, there's no strings attached. He literally has nothing except for you approaching him and telling him exactly how you feel. And I think that might be the best way to handle this. But that's just me. Like, honestly, I can only take it from my perspective. But what do you think? Leave a comment down below. Have you ever been in a situation like this? Like, how would you handle this if you were here? Where you had a dad that literally neglected you your entire life and you've always wondered like, man, is he like playing favorites? Only to then have that confirmed. Like, how would you handle this scenario? Because I would love to know. Like, leave a comment down below. Let's hear what you have to say. Am I the jerk for explaining to my friend's little daughter that I was in fact not her dad? Because now there's a lot of tension between me and my friend for some reason, and she is incredibly pissed off that I explained this to her kid. And at this point, I just don't know what to do. Okay, first of all, I'm using a throwaway account because this is very personal, and my regular account has way too much personally identifiable information. So yeah, I'm gonna be using fake names here. So I used to date a woman who I will call Jane years ago, and at one point, the question of what do you want out of your life came up. She wanted a family, but I didn't. So eventually we broke up on good terms and stayed friends. Some time later, Jane ended up pregnant after a one-night stand with a guy at a party. She tried to track him down, but couldn't, so she was left on her own to raise the baby. Now, Jane and I had been friends for a long time, even before we were a couple, so I didn't feel right about leaving her alone while she was going through all of this. And so I supported her during the pregnancy and after the baby was born. I'm sort of like an honorary uncle, always helping out with food and money and so on. Well, yesterday, since Jane was busy with work, I went to pick up the girl, whom I won't name for privacy reasons, from a friend's house. And while I was talking to the friend's mom, I could hear the girls talking and I heard the following conversation. One of them said, "Who's that man?" And the girl said to her, "He's my daddy." And after that, when the girl and I were in the car, I gently explained to her that I wasn't her dad, but instead I was more like an uncle. And you know what? She kept her head down the whole way home. Well, that night, Jane called me and scolded me for being cruel to the girl, because apparently she cried all night because of what I had said. So seriously, what am I supposed to do here? Lie to her and say that I really was her father? Jane said it would have been better if I had ignored it or even just played along, but that seems crazy to me. What should I do? Okay, holy crap. I think you need to understand that this is not the girl saying this, but instead this is Jane saying that to her daughter. Think about it for a second. That kid didn't just come up with that. I guarantee you the mom was like, oh yeah, that's your father. He's been taking care of you. Almost like making you the dad in that situation, and that is really weird. That's inappropriate. That is super not okay, because I would put money on it. There's no way that kid came up with that. That is 100% coming from the mom, especially when she said, oh, you should have just ignored it or played along, almost being like, yeah, pretend to be her father, make it real. Like, no, that's not happening, dude. So no, you're not the jerk. The fact that you even needed to have this conversation in the first place is weird to me. Like, this should not have even happened in the first place. And if there's anyone to blame in this scenario, it's Jane and not you. An entitled Karen threatens to have an employee deported after her stupid kid breaks merchandise at their store, claiming that she shouldn't have to pay for it and that she refuses to be liable for anything that got broken. Here's what happened. So I live in a city in the United Kingdom that's in no shortage of entitled people. I have my own stories, including one or two I've posted before, but this one was on another level. Close to the high street and the malls is a shop that specifically sells acoustic musical instruments, mostly guitars, drums, and a lot of folk instruments like lutes and mandolins. They also sell niche, hard-to-find instruments, including second-hand ones, and depending on what they have in stock, these instruments can be really niche. About 5 years ago during the summer, I had some downtime in town before I met a friend down the road, so I went into this shop just to browse what they had. I have zero musical ability, but I had always wanted to check this place out. In the back of the shop, I saw an instrument that I now know to be a Chinese guzheng, which is a flat-lang string instrument with about 20 strings. This one in particular was over 5 feet long, and even though it had some metal parts and some pearly looking decorative inserts, the bulk of the body was a polished dark wood. It was beautiful to look at, and even though the shop has a policy where people can play any instrument as long as they're careful, I just couldn't bring myself to touch it, especially when I saw it was priced at over $500, and this was even marked at secondhand. Of course, there were other fascinating instruments and other things in the shop itself, but this instrument is the star of this particular story. After about 10 minutes browsing the shop, listening to people picking up instruments and jamming with the super chill owner, I get ready to leave, but before I do, in comes an entitled Karen and her little entitled child, who looks to be about 6 years old. The spoiled child immediately starts running around the shop, poking at various display instruments, while the entitled Karen just hangs out by the door on her phone. Obviously, this kid was the one that wanted to be here, and the entitled Karen literally could care less. The owner immediately stiffens and watches the kid as he runs around this really densely packed shop, trying to grab anything he could reach, giggling and shrieking with unchecked energy. The entitled Karen still stays within a few meters of the door, and she is still just browsing on her phone. Now remember when I said that that really expensive instrument is a flat-laying instrument? It is usually played on a table or on a mount, and this one was rested on 2 sets of legs that held it pretty low to the floor, which would be the perfect height for a 6-year-old. The kid sees it and barges over, starting to pick at the strings wildly. It's awful to listen to. And even though he's been patient so far, this is where the owner steps in and says, ma'am, your kid is over there playing with this instrument. But the entitled Karen says, he's just playing, just leave him alone, he'll get bored in a minute. The owner tries to explain by saying that this instrument is very expensive, and that we have other children's guitars over there that he might like. And right about then, the kid starts to scream, Mommy, I want the big guitar! But the entitled Karen shoots down that idea and says that he doesn't even know how to play it and that they need to leave or they're going to be late. But the stupid spoiled child wasn't having it. And this is right about where everything goes south. The entitled kid grabs the instrument and tries to take it off the legs. But this thing is taller than some full-grown adults, and it is a chunky beast. I guess this kid had enough freaky 6-year-old strength to lift it off of one of the 2 legs before he let go of it completely. The expensive Chinese instrument crashes onto the floor, and the sound it makes is awful. It is completely split down the middle of its length, and at least one of the strings has been split. It was probably quite old, so it might have been more fragile than it should have been. But even so, it's trashed, completely ruined. The kid starts freaking out, and he's screaming, crying, and he's running to his mother. The owner runs over to check and see if the kid is okay, and the entitled Karen says, of course he's not okay. That piece of rubbish could have crushed his feet. As an FYI, his feet were fine. He literally just sprinted across the shop back to his mother clearly not in any pain at all. At this point, the kid was screaming that he wants to go home. He wants to go home right now. The entitled Karen says, "Come on, we're leaving. If he's hurt himself in any way, I'll sue you for everything you've got." The owner then says, "Wait a second, that instrument is completely wrecked." But the entitled Karen says, "So what? It's a weird guitar. If it was worth that much, you should have had it insured." The owner then says that it's not a guitar, it's a very expensive Chinese instrument, and it was worth over $500. "You're telling me it cost $500 for a chunk of wood? You're joking. It sounded awful, by the way. If you think I'm paying for some used, overpriced Chinese rubbish, you've got another thing coming." It's at this point that I notice that one of the owner's employees has come down from upstairs to see what's going on. As a fun fact, the city I live in houses students from 5 different universities, including 2 within a mile of each other. And these universities take in a lot of international students that are allowed to take part-time work in the city. Now, the person coming down the stairs is clearly student age just by looking at him. He also happened to be East Asian, and just going by statistics of the city here, most likely he was Chinese. The entitled Karen also seems to notice this man standing there, and she immediately pulls out her phone and points at this man with her other hand. She's going red in the face, moving herself closer to the door and pushing her kid outside while she confronts both the owner and this man who came downstairs. The entitled Karen says, "Was that thing yours, huh? Did you bring it with you? You can forget it if you think I owe you anything. My son's feet are probably broken, and if I hear anything about this or see either of you again, I'll sue you for negligence and have you deported back to your home country. I've got both of you on camera on my phone. I know who you are." And with that, this entitled Karen charges out the door, grabs her entitled kid by the wrist, and bolts down the street. The owner and the student just look absolutely shattered. The other people in the shop, including me, offer to help clean up and ask if they're okay. After a few minutes, I had to leave them to it as I was already late to meet with my friend. In the end, I never followed up on the situation, but 5 years later, the owner is still running the shop, so clearly nothing happened to them. I took my now partner in there a couple of weeks ago, and they had not only one of those instruments that the lady broke, but now they had 2 absolutely beautiful versions of it up for sale. So in the end, it looks like things kind of worked out. That really is an awful situation. That entitled Karen was very clearly racist. Like, there's no other way of putting it. She made a stereotype based off the student coming down the stairs and tried to make false claims that she was going to start deporting people if she got in trouble for breaking the instrument, which, by the way, thanks for admitting that your kid broke it. And it's also ironic of how bad of a parent she is if she would bolt out the door after her kid supposedly broke his feet. Like, wouldn't you want to carry him and take him to the hospital if he really did break his feet? Like, seriously, get a grip, lady. But it does sound like nothing really did happen, and just like the typical entitled Karen that she is, she was all bark and no bite. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Am I the jerk for exposing my future sister-in-law at a family event that she severely bullied me while we were in high school? Here's what happened. I want to start off by saying that all the names in this story are fake. In high school, I used to be friends with a girl by the name of Anna. We were close until junior year when I discovered that she has been spreading false rumors about me. However, even after I stopped being friends with her, she continued to make up lies about me and made my life a nightmare right up until we graduated. We went to different universities, and I'm in my mid-20s now. My older brother Carter went to the same university as Anna, and recently he announced that he had gotten engaged to his girlfriend. Our family was happy for him, but we were surprised at the same time since we didn't know he was dating anyone. He said he would introduce her at the upcoming family party. The party rolled around, and guess who walked in the door with Carter? That's right, it was Anna. I honestly thought I was hallucinating, and I felt sick seeing her again. Carter left Anna with some relatives and then came over to me and asked to talk. We went into another room, and Carter explained how he had met Anna at a party and didn't recognize her, but it was love at first sight. But after he found out her full name, he realized it was the same Anna who spread lies about me. He confronted her, and she claimed to not remember me or anything she did. He let it go because he really liked her. He then pleaded with me to be nice to her since she didn't remember what she had done and that she was a good person. I just told him I needed a moment to myself to process everything. When I eventually went back to the party, I decided I would ignore her. I didn't say anything rude, I just didn't talk to her or acknowledge her at all. She didn't talk to me or acknowledge me either. But when we sat down to eat, everything started to pop off. One of my aunts asked me how I felt about my brother getting married. I tried changing the subject, but she kept pressing me on it. So I eventually snapped and said something like, I actually don't feel great about it, considering his future wife bullied me and never apologized apologized. Everyone then turned to look at Anna. She just started crying and ran out of the room. Carter went after her and they left early. The rest of the night was chaotic because everyone was asking me what happened, and I told them. Later, Carter called me and said I was a horrible person for embarrassing Anna in front of the whole family, and I was being petty over high school drama. He demanded that I apologize to her, but I refused and said that he was the awful one for blindsiding me with this, and that if she never bothered to reach out and apologize for what she did while they were dating, I wasn't going to let it go now that they were engaged. He kept insisting that she doesn't remember, and she can't apologize for something she doesn't remember, but I think that is utter BS. I ended up hanging up on him. The way I see it, I was asked a direct question and I provided a direct answer. Also, I don't think I have any obligation to cover for her when she made my life a nightmare, especially when she's obviously lying about not remembering what she did. So am I the jerk for exposing her for the bully she was to me in high school? I don't think you're the jerk at all. I would have done the exact same thing. Call me vicious, call me petty, but if someone messes with you like that and makes your life a nightmare as a child, you not only have no reason to try and forgive them, but you also have every right to call them out when they suddenly have this convenient amnesia about what they did. And that is exactly what this Anna person did. And you know what? Your brother is an idiot. If he really cared about you, and if he really did know who this person was, he should have called you and said, hey, there's this girl I met, and at least explained what was going on. Like seriously, he knew what was going on. There's no way he didn't know this was the same person who bullied his sister. Like, come on, are you serious right now? And he is seriously a complete moron if he thought that little talk off to the side would have been more than enough to try and satiate any of the anger that the original poster was feeling towards Anna. Like, I don't know about you, but as someone who did get bullied in high school, I would be absolutely furious if my bully was marrying my sibling and my sibling didn't even tell me about it in the first place. Also, you can obviously see that Anna suddenly remembers what she did when she ran out of the room crying. Like, come on, are you serious? Why else would she run out of the room crying if she didn't know she was absolutely at fault and the original poster had her dead to rights? So personally, in my opinion, I don't think you're the jerk at all. You didn't do anything wrong, and if anything, you redeemed your childhood from this lady who clearly tried to ruin it. And if anyone's got a problem with that, they can take it up with your brother Carter, because he's the one who's dumb enough to try and marry her. Am I the jerk for not wanting a stranger to attend my wedding? So a couple of months ago, my brother told me he had been dating a guy and wanted to bring him as a guest to my wedding. My wedding is very small, and it's going to be an intimate one, with only family and close friends of myself and my fiance being invited. I asked who this guy was, and he wasn't anyone I've ever met before. My fiance and I had taken care of only inviting the people that we were closest to, and I really didn't want someone I've never met before there. My brother wasn't happy. He said it was the perfect opportunity to introduce his new boyfriend to the family. I said my wedding isn't for that. It's for celebrating my marriage. To compromise, I suggested he plan a family dinner and bring his boyfriend to that instead. Once the dinner was over, I would have met the boyfriend, so then I'd probably feel more comfortable with him going to the wedding. My brother agreed, and I followed up with him a week later, asking when the dinner was, and he asked me to schedule it. I said I was in the middle of planning a wedding, and I felt he needed to schedule it since it's his boyfriend. I followed up later, and he said he wasn't sure what day would work. In fact, he never brought it up after that, and neither did I, because I was honestly so busy. My wedding is next week, and my brother still wants to bring his boyfriend, but I said no. I don't want some stranger at my wedding. At this point, it's too late to schedule a dinner, because the next week is booked with wedding activities, and there's no day I'll have time to drive 2 hours to where the rest of the family is. He says that I'm being a jerk for not letting him bring his boyfriend to the wedding, so this honestly begs the question, am I the jerk for not wanting a stranger at my wedding? I don't think you're the jerk at all. This is your wedding. You get to decide who's there and who isn't there, regardless of who they are. And it's incredibly selfish for anybody to try and dictate who can and cannot be there. I mean, they're not getting married. They're not the person getting married actively right now. That literally falls on you and your partner. And just imagine if you didn't have any kind of autonomy over who could and couldn't be there. Do you know how annoying that would be and how frustrating it would be to have anybody show up to your wedding? You clearly want it to be a small and intimate environment. You want to have people there that you know and care about and have some kind of connection with. I think that's a completely reasonable thing to have for your wedding. There's nothing wrong with you being hesitant about this new person who you literally, by the way, don't even know. So you saying no to your brother's boyfriend showing up to your wedding does not make you a bad person, and it definitely doesn't make you a jerk. If anything, your brother is clearly just being lazy, and he couldn't take the time to try and schedule a dinner so that you could at least be comfortable with him being being around. Like seriously, he thought you were gonna plan the dinner? You're planning for a wedding. You don't have time for this. If he wanted to get this done, he really should have done it himself. So honestly, this is nobody's fault but your brother's. Because if he really wanted his new boyfriend to be welcomed into the family, he would have taken the time to try and introduce him to you before your wedding. My boyfriend is moving down to Florida for work and wants me to follow with him, which would then leave behind so many business opportunities as well as my family in my hometown. And at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. So my boyfriend and I have been dating for about 2 years now. He is in the military and we met through a mutual friend in my small town while he was stationed there. 1.5 years into our relationship, he's getting reassigned to Florida, which is 16 hours from my small town. We have been doing long distance due to myself being in school. I just graduated and he expects me to move down to Florida, which would be an amazing opportunity, but in my small town, my family lives here, as well as my mother who I'm very close with. I have 4 Airbnbs, I have great health insurance and a great job. I do not want to leave my mother and sell my Airbnbs. Yes, I could do it long distance, but my Airbnbs give me passion. As they are mine, I renovate them, and I clean them after every guest that checks out. So honestly, what should I do? Should I move to Florida for my boyfriend, or stay in my small town with my family and my passion? My boyfriend doesn't talk about marriage at all. He will give me a small word about marriage, almost as if he's baiting me with it. In Florida, I'm gonna have no family with no plans of marriage. Basically, I will have absolutely nothing for me there. I know I will make something of myself, but my mother is guilting me into staying in my small town, and my boyfriend is guilt-tripping me to move to Florida. What should I do? Honestly, I think you need to reread what you wrote, because you have not given a single reason as to why you would want to go to Florida. Like honestly, if you don't want to go there, then maybe you should try long distance again. Being pressured to go simply because your boyfriend's gonna be living there for work is in and of itself incredibly unfair and very selfish of your boyfriend. He's expecting you to uproot your entire life and your business opportunities just to move to an entirely different state and be with him specifically. And you would be going down there without any plans of a job or any way of supporting yourself. And that, in my opinion, is a really bad idea. If anything, I would at least try to find some kind of work if you wanted to go down there and be with him, but to go down there and leave everything you've established behind without some kind of plan of action when you do get down there is only going to cause a nightmare for you and your boyfriend. And that, in my opinion, is a terrible idea. A guy I started dating a week ago said that we need to have a talk about me not calling him back, but I barely know him and I really feel kind of creeped out by this, and I seriously don't know what to do. So I met this guy about a week ago. We hung out 3 times since then. He would say things like he feels like he's known me forever on the first date, and I thought that was kind of corny, but whatever. The second date, he said he wants to take care of me and wants me to talk to him about anything I'm going through. I also thought that was way too early on to say that, but again, whatever. But honestly, I didn't really feel like going out with him on the third date because I really felt a bit uneasy. But I have a history of turning down men who are very open and zealous about wanting me. It's a cycle I'm trying to break, so I said to myself, let's do it. He said he had to leave the next weekend. He was only gone for like 2 or 3 days. The second day he was gone, he called me and I didn't answer. I texted and I said I would call him back later. Honestly, I felt a bit anxious when he called for some reason. Plus, I get in moments where I just don't want to talk to anyone for a while, and all my friends and family know this. I texted him hi the next day, and he immediately responded by saying, "Hi, I thought you said you would call me back yesterday." I apologized and I called later, but he didn't answer. And when he called me back, he sounded really tired. At the end of the conversation, he said to me, "You said you would call me back yesterday, but you didn't. But you know what? It's good. We could discuss it later." I said to him, "I'm sorry, but why is this a thing we need to discuss later?" He said something, I can't really remember, because I got a little bit upset and a little bit triggered, but he said again that we're just gonna discuss it later. I said to him, "Look, I apologized, and I am sorry. I should have just told you that I didn't want to talk that day. But why are we having a discussion about this if I met you like a week ago?" He just said to me, okay, we won't discuss it then," and then changed the subject, but I was not interested in talking more at that point. I just hate being questioned by someone I barely know. Part of me is wondering if I could have said it better, and part of me is wondering if this is an early sign of possessiveness. I don't know. I've had such bad luck dating, plus I've made very bad choices in dating people who really couldn't care about me, or are not serious about me in the past, so maybe I'm not used to people being concerned about dating me. I've gone 5 years without a serious relationship, so my dating intelligence feels so low. What should I do? Honestly, this guy kinda sounds like a weirdo, I'm not gonna lie. You have met him a week ago. You barely know him. And this guy's trying to be like, oh, we're gonna have to talk about this later. Like, no, we're not. This is weird. Why do we have to talk about me not answering your phone call? It also kind of makes me wonder if this is how he's gonna act later in the relationship. Like, let's say you do become boyfriend and girlfriend and you're going steady for a while. If you don't do things that he wants you to do, is he suddenly gonna turn into this weirdo and be like, wow, why didn't you call me back? Why didn't you do this, that, or the other? Like, seriously, that just sounds really creepy to me. A week into a relationship, in my opinion, should not have that type of criticism already. Even if he had hoped for a call, this guy should have framed it in such a way where he was looking forward to talking to you instead of act like he was reprimanding you like you're a child, which you definitely are not. So in my opinion, if you do decide to keep seeing this guy, I just would not ignore that weird feeling that you have about the way he's acting, because from the outside looking in, his behavior is incredibly strange, and I don't think you should ignore that in the slightest. My entitled manager tries to force me to do a very dangerous job that I am absolutely not qualified for. They even threaten me with getting fired if I didn't sign up for this job and complete it in a timely manner. But I got revenge by exposing them to the general public, getting nearly all of my managers fired, as well as costing the company as a whole millions of dollars in the process. And I've never been more satisfied to leave a job in my life. Here's what happened. So this story is about how I resigned from my warehouse job once and for all. The company I used to work for implemented a new way of paying management commissions and bonuses. It was a money saved, money paid type of thing. Every little thing had a bonus attached to it. This month you saved on stationery? Here's $100. Didn't spend any money to repair the store in any kind of way? Here's $500. You get the picture. Normally this wouldn't affect us, but there were a few categories that were outright dangerous and unfortunately had the biggest bonuses attached to them. It started with the manager and the area manager wanting us to change light panels in the store. Now, there were a few problems with this. The lights were so old that the wiring was faulty and unpredictable, and the way the lights were rigged would require you to have training as an electrician to remove the panels and replace the light bulbs. Management was hoping that we would undertake the work, saving costs on hiring a professional electrician and thus receiving a hefty bonus. I outright refused, but a few of my colleagues were roped into it. After one particular incident of a worker receiving a mild shock, we all banded together and said no way. A week later, we were emailed a link to a new online training course. The main theme, warehouse employees were to undertake various maintenance tasks, and the main one was changing lights and the light panels. And if we didn't complete this training, then we would be unsuitable as employees, we would have not met our hiring requirements, and we could have been possibly terminated. I set about taking screenshots of everything, including the mandatory test. It became evident very quickly that I was one of the only employees who had refused to complete the training, and I was eventually confronted by the area manager. They said I had a week to complete the training or I would be written up with an official warning. And because of the severity of the warning, I could face disciplinary action and possible immediate termination. Now, what management didn't count on was anyone sharing this information with outsiders. I put together a nice packet with all the new tests and training that would force warehouse employees to do these dangerous jobs, but also copies of the new management bonus structure where it explicitly had categories that detailed if employees could do in-store repairs and save the company money, they would receive a hefty bonus. There was even an award for most money saved. I also made sure to include the copious amounts of emails and text messages showing that management was violating a lot of health and safety guidelines, especially with the lack of warehouse staff to safely unload and load the trucks and the shipping containers. It was honestly a very dangerous mess, and one of the worst things I found deep into our contracts stated that we weren't officially covered to unload transfers and trucks, that the company would hire professional contractors to unload, and it was up to us to take over once the goods were safely unloaded. Why, you may ask? Because the company didn't want to cover us medically if we injured ourselves unloading, an oversight on all of our behalves, but shocking nonetheless. I checked in with my best friend who is a lawyer, who helped me navigate any non-disclosure issues, and who pointed me in the right direction with sending off this information. Once I had sent everything off, everything went back to normal for a while. Management kept pressuring me into signing off on undertaking dangerous jobs just to make their bonuses, and you know what? I refused. It all came to a head when the area manager essentially said to me that if I don't sign off on this next shift, I will be fired on the spot. No matter how much I pleaded my case, the area manager tried to spin it as a new company wife initiative, and that we should take pride in our workplace, which is such a load of garbage. I struggle with this a lot, and I didn't know what to expect when I got off the bus and made my way to the store the next morning. When I walked in ready for my shift, the store was essentially deserted. I opened the warehouse and I checked the transfer sheet, receipts, and then grabbed my water bottle and headed into the store to fill it up. As I was standing by the water filter, the customer service manager came downstairs with this cheeky smile on his face. Apparently, the manager was now under close review and was currently in mediation, having to answer for all the garbage corners that she had cut to make her bonuses. And the best part is that the area manager and general manager were both fired. Apparently, they were given the choice to resign without any payouts or benefits, or the shareholders and the CEO of the company would begin an investigation into these practices. I honestly couldn't believe it. A few hours later, the CEO and the CFO arrived and tried to offer me a bonus for speaking up, a formal apology, and a raise if I was to drop the case. I just grabbed my bag and resigned right there on the spot. There's no way I was going to drop anything. I walked out of there with a sense of satisfaction, knowing that they'd be investigated and hopefully taken to task on what they tried to force us to do. From what I saw online and on the company's website, it took a long time for the company to recover. Even to this day, you can see the company has been bought, changed hands over and over again. Millions of dollars have been lost because of this. They've received bad publicity, public trust and employee trust is now gone, and they did this to themselves, all just to save a few bucks, as well as to try and reward the greedy management. Wow, that is actually crazy. To think that management would try to force you to do a very dangerous job, and then you just basically say, no, I'm not going to do that, and you stick to your morals, that is honestly awesome to see. So good for you for costing them millions of dollars. They seriously had it coming. They were literally putting your life and your coworkers' lives in danger, and somebody had to speak up, because if you didn't, somebody would probably have gotten hurt. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. My girlfriend thinks that we can afford anything we want all the time, and it's now causing a rift between us as she is demanding that we go on this long summer vacation without realizing that we simply don't have the money for it. Here's what happened. So we've been together since 2013. We own a house that we bought in 2019 and have one kid born in 2021. We have 2 cars and we both work. Now, my girlfriend came from a not so poor but also not so rich household. Lately, my girlfriend has been on about selling our house to move a little bit closer to her work. It takes about 35 minutes to drive there. And then she also wants to go on summer vacation with her family with our pop-up camper during the summer from July until August, which is very expensive, both for the gasoline price and renting a spot to camp on. 2 days ago, our main car broke down. I can fix most things myself, but this time it's throwing so many codes that I do not know where to begin. So I was going to take it to the mechanic once I get an appointment, since we need 2 cars and the main car is the car we use to drive the kids, which is also what she takes to work. So right now, also having to sell a house and buying a new one is going to be really expensive. Today, I told my girlfriend we can't do all 3 of these things because maybe the repair on the car is expensive, and if the repair is expensive, then we either sell the house or take a summer vacation. We can't afford all 3 of these things. And when I said this, she got mad. She was upset that I didn't know what was wrong with the car and that she is sick and tired of having to drive all this way to work and back. Keep in mind, she wanted to move here. She proceeded to rant, saying that she does not want to spend another summer staying at home, doing absolutely nothing like we do all night. Now, it is true that we barely do anything besides go to her parents' place, but it's also because anytime I suggest something, she immediately declines it. What can I do here? She does not understand that we can't afford to have everything that she wants. What should I do? I think it's important to note that your girlfriend is being financially immature. I mean, you put it best. You can't afford all 3 of these things. Some kind of compromises need to be made. So maybe instead of selling the house and going on some weird vacation for a month and a half, maybe plan something that's a little bit more affordable, instead of something that's going to drive up your budget and empty everybody's wallets. The original poster goes on to say that his girlfriend is not very good with money and she tends to buy things on impulse, which kind of makes sense. I mean, honestly, how much is she footing the bill with getting some kind of new house and a good vacation going? Because from the sounds of it, it kind of looks like she's putting all of that on you to figure out, and that, in my opinion, is completely unfair. So hopefully the 2 of you can sit down and have some kind of budgeting session so she can see exactly what you can afford while also understanding what you absolutely cannot afford. My friend's boyfriend is an alcoholic and I don't want him at my wedding, and I'm not sure how to break the news to her, and I seriously don't know what to do. So to start things out, I've been good friends with my friend for about 10 years. Over the course of our friendship, we've been there for each other through the ups and the downs of our romantic relationships, as well as our partners, our breakups, moving homes, being supportive of each other, and then some. She has been together with her long long-term boyfriend for 4 years, while I have been with my fiance for 3 years. She's been living with her boyfriend since the COVID lockdown at the beginning of their relationship, and I moved in with my partner 6 months into our relationship. My fiance proposed to me very close to our 2-year anniversary. Once this occurred, my friend completely ghosted me and our entire friend group for a full month. I didn't pry, but did check in at least once a week on her. I sent text messages stating that I hope she is okay, and if she needs anything at all to just reach out and I'll be there to support her. At a dinner party towards the end of this ghosting period, but not before, our mutual friend let it be known that our friend was missing in action from the dinner party and had been missing in action for the past month because she was jealous of my engagement and another couple's engagement, which occurred a few months prior to mine. She was upset that my relationship had progressed to engagement so quickly and that our other friends got engaged after dating for 6 years. All the while she'd been with her boyfriend for the past 3 years without any hint of a proposal. I say this because this is how my friend thinks. She's always comparing herself to others, and she's settling for her current boyfriend of 6 years. Now onto the boyfriend of my friend. He is a raging alcoholic. He drinks a bottle of bourbon every night to sleep. He will get so drunk he can't find their bathroom and will just go to the bathroom on the dresser drawers, as well as the bed or in the corner, pretty much anywhere he can find. He drinks on the job and has been fired from multiple positions because of this. All of this is bad enough, but my friend enables him. The boyfriend doesn't have a license anymore. It was suspended due to multiple DUIs. Yet she allows him to drive her car every day, will buy him liquor, and take him to bars to drink. She doesn't let him drive when they go out, thank God. Now, the enabling is not great, but her boyfriend is mean and rude to not only her when he drinks, but to myself and our other friends as well. He's called multiple people horrible names, has yelled at my friend multiple times in front of the public eye. He's rude to wait staff, and it's embarrassing to be out in public with them due to his ignorance. With this background, honestly, here's the question. My wedding is going to be an open bar. I don't want to include my friend's boyfriend because of his alcoholism. Our wedding is in an industrial space, so safety is a concern. In addition, his attitude and rudeness is the main issue I have. I don't want to deal with him. However, my friend is so far down the road with blinders on, she would see it as the biggest slight if I do not invite him to the wedding, and would potentially even end our friendship if I don't invite him. How do I breach the subject of her not receiving a +1? Because I'm honestly not comfortable with him attending, and I seriously don't know what to do. For starters, it doesn't really sound like you need to invite her because she's been ghosting you for what, several months at this point, and all because you got engaged. Like seriously, she does not sound like a good friend. What kind of friend would act like that and then run off? Was she ever your friend to begin with? There's a lot of questions I've got. But if you do decide to invite her and bring her to your wedding, I think you just be upfront and straightforward with her. You're both adults, you're both in your 30s. She obviously knows what's going on, but maybe you spelling it out might be a good thing. If I was in your shoes, I would just tell her straight up, look, your boyfriend is an alcoholic and I don't want him at my wedding. It's that simple. If she doesn't like it, she doesn't have to show up. But based on her previous behavior, it doesn't sound like she's a good friend anyways. So really, would there be anything missed by her not showing up? Regardless though, I think you need to be ready for your friend to have some kind of reaction to this, because chances are she's probably in denial and she's probably going to react very strongly when you tell her that her boyfriend can't come to your wedding. My ex-boyfriend has no place to live at the moment, but I want him out of my house and I no longer want him living with me. And at this point, I don't know what to do. So to start things out, my ex broke up with me in late March. It was absolutely heartbreaking as I still was very much in love with him and willing to do anything. He immediately started looking for places to move to as we do live together. He found a place that was being built and signed the contract, which stated he would be able to move in at the end of May or the beginning of June. And I agreed to this. However, now it's June and they said they would contact him at least 4 weeks before move-in date, and they still haven't done that, which means it'll be July at the earliest that he will move in. And even that is not certain, as they said they are having issues and cannot provide an estimated move-in date. We currently live in a studio. We've kept it nice and civil with each other and treat each other as regular friends or roommates. However, this is absolutely killing me, as I cannot move on properly this way. The added time of him moving out just feels so agonizing, since I feel that whenever I'm at home, I'm suffering in his presence and I'm trying to mask my sadness. I don't even have a space to cry without him seeing or hearing me. The cherry on top is that I also heard that he's active on dating applications. That just ripped my heart to shreds. It's of course not bizarre that your ex would do that, but to know that and still see him every day and be reminded of it when I still have feelings for him is terrible. I also care a lot for him and I don't want to hurt him. He's a good person person to me, but I just want to move on with my life, and I can't do this for much longer. We pay rent equally for the time he lives here. He doesn't have friends or family that live close by us, and I seriously don't know what to do. Is it fair to ask him to just move out regardless of his situation? How would I even go about asking that? Would that be an unfair request to make? What should I do? Honestly, in my opinion, considering the circumstances, I don't think it's unusual to say, hey, you need to move out. You have been more than accommodating. You've allowed him time to figure out a place to live, and that place is clearly being delayed. But you know what? Your timeline doesn't need to be delayed. Now, in terms of what is or isn't fair, you've got to remember that he broke up with you. You don't owe him anything. It is totally understandable that you would still have feelings for him and you want to take care of him, but trust me, he's moved on. He's on dating applications. He is obviously looking for someone else in his life, and unfortunately, that person is not you. And of course, obviously, you're not in a place to accept that yet, but that is the reality of what's going on. If anything, it kind of seems like your ex is taking advantage of your kindness and your considerate nature. I mean, you're letting your ex-boyfriend live with you. I know if I was in your shoes, there's no way I would have let that fly. And sure, you think there's no friends or family he can crash with, but if you told him he needs to get lost and find other places to live, he would figure something out. Get a hotel, go to an Airbnb, something. So honestly, if he's willing to move on and actively try to date while living with you, then you can also actively move on with your life and ask him to move out. Am I the jerk for telling my sister it's her own fault that she's alienated herself from the family? Here's what happened. So this all started about 5 years ago when my older sister came to me and told me she was looking into our genealogy and wanted me to do one of those novelty genetics tests. I wasn't enthusiastic about it, but she was weirdly insistent, so I gave her the sample she asked for and moved on, not really giving it much more thought. At no point did I have a digital login for any results. I also never thought to mention this to my parents. A few months after this, my sister moved 6 hours away for another job and was non-communicative. She would call my dad every once in a while, but my brother and I found that if we didn't call or text her first, we would not hear from her, and she basically cut my mom off outright. When we would question her about this, she would refuse to acknowledge that that's what she's been doing. Ultimately, we all just accepted it. My mom was totally baffled and brokenhearted, and the rest of us became closer with my sister as a result. Even she and dad only talk a few times a year now, and none of us have seen her in person in 5 years. Earlier this year, my brother did a 23andMe and got weird results that led to hard conversations. My mom and dad came clean that the three of us were donor conceived, a choice they made together because my dad is infertile. They apologized for not telling us earlier, but dad felt very strongly about not telling us because he never wanted us to think of him as anything less than our dad. My dad called my sister and told her this too after we talked, and she basically had a breakdown on the phone. It turns out that she knew that dad wasn't her biological father and firmly believed for 5 years that mom had cheated on dad and had been nursing intense resentments as a result. Apparently, she did a genetic test 5 years ago and was puzzled that the ancestry information didn't match with what we knew about my dad's family. And that's right about when she came to me to get a sample. She sent it to a lab with hers, and they confirmed the results were genetic half-siblings with the same mother and different fathers. She drew her own conclusions from there, meaning that dad was my biological father and not hers, and that mom had an affair, and decided to uproot her life to get a fresh start. She's now furious about the situation and feels like she's been robbed of the last 5 years. When we last talked, I was maybe less sympathetic than I should have been, and I told her cutting us off with no explanation was an insane move, and if she had told us even a fraction of what was going on, it could have been cleared up years ago. I acknowledge that mom and dad messed up here by not being truthful about our genetic identities, which I'm also struggling with my own feelings on this, but in the end, it was her decision to do this dramatic move and slow fade away with zero explanation. I also expressed how hurt my brother and I had felt when we were left out of her life, and that it wasn't fair to punish us for what she thought had happened. So honestly, am I the jerk for telling my sister that her alienation and isolation is literally her own fault? I personally don't think you're the jerk. Yes, the situation sucks, and a lot of assumptions can be made, but your sister's decision to literally cut everybody off and say, okay, I'm gonna get a fresh start, that was all her choice. And I mean, obviously so. If she had talked to any of your siblings or her parents, she could have gotten that information probably much quicker, and it would have saved her 5 years of being angry and frustrated. Like, don't get me wrong, your parents really suck on multiple levels, but if your sister had actually spoken to either of them 5 years ago, a lot of pain could have been avoided, and honestly, that is literally all her fault. My coworkers are constantly bothering me, and considering how busy I am in life, I seriously don't want to have have to eat lunch with all of them all the time, every day. And now I don't know how to tell them kindly that I don't want to eat lunch with them, and I just want my lunch hour break to myself. What should I do? So I first want to start off by saying that this is a temporary job, and I've only known my coworkers for about 2 months, and we're going to be working together for 2 more months. Overall, I feel very overwhelmed with things happening in my life. I have a full-time job. I'm also attending several courses in the evenings. My average day starts at 6 in the morning, and I get to work by 8:30. I leave work by 5:30 p.m., and then I go to school from 6 o'clock all the way until 9 o'clock. By 10 o'clock p.m., I'm home and I'm showering and I'm in bed by 11. Because this is a temporary job, I'm also spending 10 to 15 hours a week applying to jobs because I have nothing lined up after this. I'm getting 7 hours of sleep or less per night, 4 days a week. On Fridays, I'm trying to do something with my friends, but I'm often too exhausted. On weekends, I'm meal prepping, grocery shopping, and going to appointments and doing homework. I feel very stretched thin, but I paid thousands of dollars for these courses and I can't just give up. It's just a few more months. I've got to make it work. When my coworkers constantly want to get together during lunch or breaks, it's actually very irritating. I've made good friends with them, but our conversations have shifted to complaining about management. Often, out of our 1 hour long lunch break, 50 minutes are spent complaining about management. I literally don't want to be a therapist for somebody else 5 hours a week, on top of doing everything myself. I don't have the energy to maintain these relationships. I just want my lunch break in peace and quiet, and my lunch is the only break I have for 4 days straight sometimes. So far, I've just been faking the pleasantries, and I accidentally made some new friends here, and I really did not intend to do that. But now they expect me to be available for them to complain about our boss. I mean, they don't even do a good job, and our boss has a bad reaction to that. I personally don't get as much heat because I do my job well. They honestly bring this on themselves, and at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. This is a really funny situation to be stuck in. You're just doing this job to make ends meet, and you are faking these pleasantries, and now suddenly you're the popular person at the lunch table, and everybody wants to eat lunch with you. But secretly, you're like, I don't want to be here, get away from me. That is seriously hilarious to me. But considering your circumstance, I completely understand where you're coming from. You are stretched incredibly thin. You've got a lot going on, you're very busy, and you just want to enjoy that time during your lunch break to just be there for yourself. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I think obviously communication is a wonderful thing. If you just say to them, guys, I really just want to be left by myself and just relax, and then maybe explain your situation, they would probably be more inclined to let you just have your space. And I think it's important to remember that the word no is a complete sentence. Like, it really is okay to say, no, I don't want to come along. No, I don't want to have plans or anything like that. I don't think anybody would blame you considering your schedule. I mean, think about it. Your schedule is really tight. You have a lot of things going on in your life and a lot of chainsaws in the air that you're juggling right now. And sure, none of this is permanent. It's only a temporary situation. So maybe that can be some kind of silver lining to hold on to. But honestly, if you don't want to eat with anybody for lunch, I think just saying, hey, I don't want to eat with you, literally will probably solve all your problems. My entitled boss ends up in federal prison after he threatens to deport his employees and refuses to pay people their proper wages. And I'm so happy to have played some kind of role in him getting put in jail because this guy absolutely deserved it. Here's what happened. So I have a good friend by the name of Mary. That's not her real name. She is a sweet and caring mother of 2 young children. She is also a widow and was an illegal immigrant. Now, she came over here in early 2008 with her husband and 1-year-old daughter, and she was pregnant with her second kid on the way. He worked long hours as a field worker, often 60 to 70 hours a week. They'd been in this country maybe half a year when disaster struck. Her husband passed away in an automobile crash, and this was on the way to work one morning. She did what she had to do. She got a job at a local donut shop and cafe. At first, she was happy because everyone but the owner was an immigrant, and she had much in common with her coworkers. And the boss told her that she could work many hours, which she really needed. But it quickly became apparent that there was a dark underside to this shop. The owner would only hire illegal immigrants. He told them that if they worked hard for him, he would take care of them. But if they didn't, he'd call immigration and have them deported. Then he would tell them that they all had to work 48 hours a week, and he didn't believe in overtime. He scheduled them for 6 days a week, regular time, and there were no sick days and no vacation days. She came to me and asked what to do. I informed her that what the boss was doing was very illegal, that he was violating Department of Labor regulations, and he was counting on her fear to keep her quiet. And she then did one of the bravest things I've ever seen in my life. She made that call to the Department of Labor, knowing that she could get fired and knowing that she and her children could get deported. Well, the Department of Labor came down and did an investigation and found that the boss owed his employees over over $27,000 just for the overtime in question. The boss eventually reached an agreement that he would pay all of his employees the back wages, and he would get all of this owed money back to them on an agreed date. But things don't quite go as planned, as this is the part that absolutely sends him to federal prison. He calls each employee one at a time into his office. He hands them a check for the overtime they are owed, and for each employee, it's just over $3,000. He tells them to endorse the check because he needs to photocopy it to send it to the Department of Labor. They comply, he copies it, and then he leans over and runs it through the shredder. He tells them that if anyone complains to the feds, that they'll all get deported, and then screams at them to go back to work. And then this guy actually has the guts to send those copies to the Labor Department, which is just total arrogance on his part. She comes to me crying that she needed that money. What can she do now? Well, folks, this jerk is going down. So I am the one who drops the dime on my boss. The local paper had carried the story when he'd agreed for the restitution, so it was only a matter of time and a few clicks away to find the pertinent information I needed. I called the department's office in the state capital and was transferred to the original investigators. I explained to them what Mary had told me and her fears if she complained. They were amazed at this audacity and they vowed to look into it. Usually, the Fed machine grinds slowly, if at all, but this was too much for the Department of Labor. In just 2 months, a federal grand jury handed down a 10-count indictment for concealment by trick and making false statements to the U.S. Department of Labor, and for willful failure to pay overtime to his employees. This boss was a complete idiot. It turns out that a conviction for concealment by trick and making false statements carries a maximum penalty of at least 5 years in prison, as well as a $250,000 fine, if not both. A conviction for willful failure to pay overtime carries a maximum penalty of 6 months imprisonment and a $10,000 fine as well. The judge sentenced him to 5 years in jail. I don't know if he served the whole sentence. In terms of a happy ending to this story, the boss went to jail in the end of 2011. Mary and her coworkers stayed on at the donut shop, which was run fairly successfully by the boss's wife. No one was deported, and I don't know about the others, but Mary became a U.S. citizen in the fall of 2016. She has since remarried, and the kids are doing so well in school. She now works as a secretary at a local company, making far more than she ever did slinging donuts. That really is a nice way to end the story, but also that boss is crazy. You seriously want to mess around with the Department of Labor? Like, no, that's not going to happen. The federal government absolutely will chew you up and spit you out. And you know what? That guy deserved every second of jail time he was going to get. He was threatening to deport his employees if they said anything. That is so unbelievably toxic. But it's honestly so good to see that he got exactly what he deserved. This guy's a piece of garbage, and hopefully nobody ever has to be affected by this guy ever again. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. My boyfriend is claiming that I don't have anything going on in my life, and I'm so frustrated that he said that, and I seriously don't know what to do. So recently, my boyfriend has been feeling like I don't do much with my life. For context, we're both military living overseas. I've already expressed to him I wanted to take my last summer here to travel, since I have a lot of upcoming trips planned. I do a lot of solo traveling, which includes a lot of logistics of planning these trips. I have taken time off from school because of the trips that I have planned this summer, and family are coming out so I can be fully present with them. I am completely well off financially, my car is paid off, I have absolutely no debt, and I can afford my life. I also have a significant amount of money in savings, and I also do a lot of trading on the side. I have a retirement account, and I spend a lot of my time working out and meal prepping. I have also met all of my goals when it comes to my nutrition and bodybuilding. I do have a lot of free time on my hands at my job, but I knew this going into the job, and it doesn't bother me at all. He, on the other hand, does not have a lot of free time in his job. I know full and well that he isn't as financially stable as me due to his own life choices that I don't judge. In fact, the past couple of months, I have spent my time getting my advanced open water scuba certification, and also entirely renovating a building using power tools and learning new skills doing so. But time and time again, he brings up that I do nothing at work and that I have way too much free time. This morning, he simply said he doesn't have bandwidth and that he has been extremely busy pursuing his master's degree and dealing with work. This is something he has brought up multiple times and essentially holds it over my head, claiming that I have nothing going on in my life. Therefore, I have decided to pursue my own personal training certification and signed up for a class that I don't even want to take right now due to all the things that he said that I listed above. I just would appreciate it if he would stop informing me that I do not have anything going on with my life, and it honestly feels really insulting. When I express express this to him, his rebuttal is that I am making him feel bad and doing the same thing by insulting him, by stating that I feel like he is using how busy he is as an excuse to not address the problems within our relationship. I mean, am I missing something here? This is all so very frustrating, and I seriously don't know what to do. It sounds like your boyfriend's jealous that you not only make more money than him, but also that you have all this free time. You can do whatever you want. What is he talking about? You're not doing anything with your life. It sounds like you're doing a lot of different things. You're doing what you love with the money and the time you've earned. And you've worked for this. This wasn't just handed to you. If anything, he's probably frustrated that he can't have the same. He is having to work extremely hard just to make ends meet in his life. And that clearly frustrates him when he sees you going off and doing whatever you want. So in my opinion, I think any kind of problems he has literally has nothing to do with you. He sounds incredibly insecure, and it sounds like he doesn't appreciate you at all. If he's unhappy with his situation, then he needs to address his own needs and not try to shame you for doing things that you enjoy. My boyfriend is constantly inviting other people onto our private dates, and it's honestly starting to get annoying, and I seriously don't know what to do. So as the title suggests, my boyfriend has a bad habit of inviting other people whenever we make plans, be it our friends, his family, anybody. You can guarantee that for most things, there will always be someone else there. At first, it became a bit of a joke. Often he wouldn't realize that something was a date and would just invite other friends in the same way as a normal plan. We've joked about this a lot, but it's starting to take a toll on me. This year, we've been incredibly lucky to book 2 holidays. One is a big group and the other is just us. The latter was initially booked so that we'll ask some friends if they want to join us, if they can get the time off from work. But equally so, if it is just the 2 of us, we'd be happy with that as well. This led to my boyfriend inviting numerous friends who couldn't make it, followed by even more attempts to ask friends who weren't able to come. I'd say probably 10 people in total, and now he's offered the holiday to his younger sister, as well as one of her friends to join us. Now, I'd hate to feel like a spoiled brat or contradict myself, as I'm very fortunate to have these holidays in the first place, and I did agree that other people could come along, but it really feels like he's searched high and low in a desperate attempt to find someone to join us. I mean, what's wrong with it just being a holiday for the 2 of us? The same thing quite often tends to happen with anything that could be considered a date. Getting some food or going for drinks, going to the movie theater or any other kind of activity. You name it and someone else is always there. While he is always really polite about it, and he would always ask me if I would mind if a certain person was invited, that's only ever after he's already asked them about it, and then if I said no, I would come off as really rude if I objected. It's also worth noting, because of money and also COVID, that we've only actually had 1 holiday abroad, just the 2 of us. This was last summer to Portugal, where we ended up being sick in bed for most of it, which honestly couldn't be helped. So this year, I really expressed my desire for a redo holiday with just the 2 of us. It's a conversation we've had a few times, but clearly, if I'm making this post, it's something that's still bothering me. Also, we have no problem spending time alone together and within the house itself. We don't live together, but we see each other on the weekends. We are more than fine with alone time and hanging out with just the 2 of us. Neither of us have the money or time off work to book anything else this year. So while I would love to get a holiday in the diary for just the 2 of us to look forward to, I just don't think it's possible right now. Why does my boyfriend keep doing this? What should I do? Honestly, I think it kind of sounds like you need to communicate more clearly what you want and don't want, because right now you're just not saying anything. You need to learn how to say no, I don't want anyone else here, I want it to just be the 2 of us. Maybe explain to him that you want more quality time between the 2 of you, and you don't want an entire group of people to come along for everything you guys do. And maybe this is a case where your boyfriend just doesn't know what's going on, and maybe he just likes having his family and friends come along to spend time with you and him. Maybe this really is an innocent desire, and he's not trying to like ruin plans or anything like that. But I honestly think if you set up some kind of boundary and say, hey, this specific activity is a date between the 2 of us, or something like that, it can hopefully help clue him in that you know what, you just want to spend time between the 2 of you. And hopefully if you do that, he can slowly pick up that you don't want everybody to come along to everything that you do. Am I the jerk for leaving my sick husband at home so that I could attend a birthday party on our behalf? So my husband by the name of John, that's not his real name, has been in bed with the flu for about a week now. He's quite miserable and he's got headaches, nausea, and a fairly high fever. So I've been working from home to be able to keep an eye on him throughout the day. It was my younger sibling's birthday on Saturday, and my husband and I were invited over to my parents' house to celebrate. On Friday, John told me he wasn't feeling up to the children's birthday party, which is completely understandable. I wouldn't necessarily want to be around rowdy children if I was sick either. So I decided that I'd go there on my own, bring over the presents, stay for an hour or two, and be back home before dinner. To be honest, after spending days stuck in our flat together, taking care of my husband, I was quite grateful for the opportunity to get outside for a few hours. When I told John as much, he didn't comment on it, but he did seem a bit grumpy afterwards. Saturday came and I drove over to my parents' house in the afternoon, and for some context, they only live about 20 minutes away. I left John with some painkillers, some tea, and some tissues on the nightstand, so he wouldn't need to get up while I was gone. I told him he could call me in case something happened though. The party went great and I got back home after 2 hours without any calls from John, so I assumed everything had gone well. However, he was frowning all evening, and when I asked whether he was alright, he called me selfish for leaving him alone and accused me of not caring about his well-being. He told me I should have stayed at home with him instead of having fun on my own while he was miserable. He has since been giving me the silent treatment whenever I tried to talk to him about it. It's been a few days and I thought he'd have calmed down by now, but it still seems like he's sulking about, and I'm starting to wonder whether his reaction is reasonable or if I'm the jerk in this situation. What should I do? You are not the jerk in this situation. Your husband is being a complete baby about this. He was sick. Why on earth should you have to stay home and take care of him when he's a fully grown adult who absolutely can take care of himself? For some context, the husband in this situation is 26 years old. There's no reason why he can't take care of himself and have some kind of autonomy over his life. Like seriously, why should you have to stick at home and not be there and make a presence for the family at this birthday party? I mean, you already bought presents for the kid. What are you supposed to do? Just turn around and return it at the store? That's not fair for anybody, and it's a massive waste of time and money. And don't get me wrong, I know that the flu really does suck. It can affect people in different ways, but your husband is being incredibly immature, and if anything, he's just projecting his jealousy onto you because you were able to get out of the house, and that is clearly something he's not able to do right now, and that obviously upset him. So hopefully he can straighten up his act and stop acting like such a child, because giving you the silent treatment simply because you went to a birthday party and he couldn't make it is honestly incredibly immature, and you don't deserve that in the slightest. My future fiance is refusing to come with me to visit my family after my uncle passed away, and even though I've done the same for him, I'm at a crossroads and I seriously don't know what to do. So my uncle just passed away under tragic circumstances, and my boyfriend is refusing to come with me and saying that he isn't obligated to visit my family with me ever at all. We've been together for 7 years, and he says he wants us to get married and have children. He gets on very well with my family and they adore him. They even treat me better when he's around. He is incredibly self-centered when it comes to supporting me or visiting them. Members of my family keep asking me why I'm always there alone, and my mother has started to feel disrespected that he wouldn't come visit with me despite him being in town. I even have to keep making excuses for him. Not only am I becoming embarrassed, I'm starting to doubt his sincerity towards me and our relationship. I preface this by saying I've been to visit his family many times. There has even been some occasions where a certain aggressive member of his family had been verbally awful towards me. He didn't have my back in these situations that were clearly not my fault. Although I appreciate and respect them, his family has caused me to be upset a notable amount of times. And a couple of those times, he's admitted that it's him causing the conflict. For example, coming home drunk and acting awful while I tried to sober him up and just try to calm him down. He would then blame me for it, causing trouble with his mother. He apologized and admitted to causing the problems, but it created an insane amount of trouble. He also seems to revert to acting like a child when around his family, and I've told him I find it distressing and uncomfortable to be around. Now, despite these things, I always still come around. I always offer support as well as friendship, because I was under the impression that these people are my future family also, and I'm duty bound to treat them with kindness and respect. Now, I bought us a car because he was complaining he didn't get to see his family enough. One day he woke me up to say that his mother had fallen ill and was in a coma. I woke up immediately. I packed our bags. I even booked hotels and transport. Eventually, she did pass away, but I helped his family arrange the funeral and even helped out buying everyone clothes to attend the funeral. It cost me well over $1,000, and I was there for him every step of the way. Now, to circle back to me, I've just now found out about the death of my uncle, and guess what? He asked me to buy him another car. I said this time I will loan you the money, but I will need you to take me to my family so I can make arrangements. He said, fine, I'll drop you off then. I said, no, please come with me for the day. I have many siblings and I'd like him to not only support me, but also get some time with my family as we're supposed to be getting engaged. But when I said this, he said no. He said he can't be bothered. I'm literally asking him to just be by my side through this, and he ended up shouting at me me that it's a waste of his time and that he'd rather be doing something fun. I honestly have no words. I told him that I'm thinking about us and I'm thinking about splitting up over his selfishness and disrespect. I love him and I want us to be together, but I'm turning 39 this year. I don't have time to plead with him to do the bare minimum. It seems like everything's perfect, but only as long as he's getting his own way and never has to make any effort. I honestly don't understand why he's behaving this way, and I'm deeply upset. I'm going through a deep feeling of grief right now as I'm thinking I'm gonna have to leave this man that I'm supposed to be marrying, and it's starting to become an unbearable weight upon me, and I seriously don't know what to do. Your boyfriend sounds awful. Seriously, you were there for him when his mother passed away. You made all these sacrifices just to get things going for his family, and now that you're asking him to literally return the favor, he's turning his back on you and saying, no, I would rather do anything else. This just doesn't sound fun. But like, of course it's not fun. You're going to a funeral. There's been a death in your future wife's family. The least you can do is try and be there for her. Honestly, the way he's acting is a massive red flag because right now he is showing some true colors. And in my opinion, this is something you absolutely should not ignore. Am I the jerk for crying to my husband about my mother-in-law coming over all the time? Here's what happened. So my husband and I had a baby 3 weeks ago. My parents, especially my mother-in-law, have been extremely helpful in helping with the baby. She cleans up, picks up our clothes, and does our laundry every day. She cooks us meals, sleeps over, and does the night shift so that we can sleep, and will pretty much do anything we need from her. I am grateful for everything that she does. The problem is that we live in a studio apartment, and having her over all the time makes it really difficult for me. I'm 3 weeks postpartum, and I'm still figuring out my baby, breastfeeding, and pumping. It is extremely hard to do that with my mother-in-law in the studio with us. Despite this, I let her come over because she's been extremely helpful. Yesterday though, she did something which I felt was very inappropriate. She had slept over for 2 nights doing the night shift with the baby and spent 3 days with us. I was so happy when she finally left after 3 days and could finally just relax and enjoy my baby. Then she texted me asking when was a good time to drop off laundry and lunch. I was a bit annoyed because she already had spent 3 days over here and I hadn't asked for laundry or lunch to be dropped off and I just needed my space for the day. She also made sure to write in her text message that she was dropping off and not staying. Then she came over, her husband dropped her off and left, and she starts cleaning up. I was literally in shock that she was staying in our apartment, not being invited, even after saying that she wasn't staying. I was visibly upset, so she decided to step out, and my husband and I got into a huge fight, and he called me ungrateful, and basically said that I have to accept her being over all the time if I want her to help out. Then they both guilted me and made me feel ungrateful because I don't want her in my space because she's doing everything for us. I am extremely grateful for her help, but she is overstaying her welcome and she is crossing boundaries. So am I the jerk for being overwhelmed by this and getting annoyed with her despite all of the help that she's providing? Honestly, I don't think you're the jerk here. I can totally understand how you're like, I really want to have my own space and I really need to have some kind of boundary set up. I think you probably need to say what that boundary is and discuss that with your husband, who's clearly not being very helpful. But you know what? That is not a bad thing to say, okay, we need some space. I can understand if they pop by and spend some time at night or even stop by just to help you out, but 3 days in a row sleeping in your apartment, that's a little bit much. So I can completely understand how you need some space. There may be some kind of compromise here where she can still come over and help out, but not spend every waking moment of your life in your house. But honestly, that needs to be discussed with your husband, because from the sounds of it, he is not doing anything to help out. And right about now would be a good time for him to inform his mom that you absolutely need some space. My entitled stepdaughters ruined my vacation with my family after they intentionally hide my daughter's passport, demanding that she stay behind instead and babysit their children. So as a result, in a fit of rage, I canceled the vacation and now I'm being called a jerk and I seriously don't know what to do. First off, I want to say that every name in this story is fake. I've been married to my wife for 5 years. I have a biological daughter by the name of Sarah, and I also have 2 stepdaughters by the name of Mary and Hannah. They're 25 and 28 years old. Both are single moms and live with us currently. There has been issues about the stepdaughters asking my daughter to babysit the kids. My daughter didn't have a problem with it at first, since this is what she does to earn money, but since her stepsisters don't pay her much, she would refuse to babysit. We worked this out by having my wife take care of paying for the babysitting. I planned a family vacation for 3 days, and I wanted everybody to come along. However, both of my stepdaughters suggested that my daughter stay home and that she should watch the kids since my wife wife doesn't want her grandkids to come along. They said it's because the kids are used to my daughter and hiring another babysitter would cause issues. And also, they said that my daughter isn't too fond of our destination, but it's obvious that she wanted to go. They insisted that my wife offered to pay her double, and there was just a lot of back and forth on this until I demanded that they stop bringing it up. We were supposed to go last week, but when everyone had bagged their bags and it was time to go, my daughter found out that she didn't have her passport on her. We searched her bag like crazy, and then we went home and we searched there as well. My wife and my stepdaughters all kept insisting that we go back to the airport or else we would miss our flight. They insisted that my daughter stay home with the kids. They even told the new babysitter to go home because she was no longer needed, but I refused to go and I kept searching for the passport until one of the stepdaughters admitted that she helped hide my daughter's passport just to get her to stay home with the kids. And when I found this out, I was absolutely furious. I was so livid. I tried to get her to tell me where it was, but she said that her sister had it, but the other stepsister denied it. I then threatened to cancel the entire vacation if they didn't give it back, and it was only then that they gave it back to me. But even after that, I decided to actually cancel the vacation, and I blew up at them and I berated them. They stayed upstairs for a while, and my wife refused to speak to me and said that I punished my stepdaughters for worrying about their kids and wanting them to stay with someone that they knew. I then got told that I overreacted and I ruined the trip for everybody. And this is all honestly so infuriating, and I seriously don't know what to do. First off, what is wrong with your stepdaughters and your wife? And yes, I'm including your wife in this situation because she absolutely knew what was going on. There's no way she wasn't conspiring against your daughter. And the fact that she would defend her stepdaughters for their atrocious behavior is proof enough that she is not a winner. I mean, seriously, what were they thinking? Did they really think they were going to get away with this? Did they seriously think this vacation was going to happen without this guy's daughter? Like, are you kidding me? It's one thing to make a request and say, hey, could you babysit my kid? But it's another thing entirely to try and force this girl to stay behind just to watch your stupid children. I mean, how selfish and disrespectful can you get? They literally only cared about their own agenda and went out of their way to basically ruin this vacation. Like, the dad in this situation didn't do anything wrong, because if I was in his shoes, I absolutely would have canceled the vacation as well. I mean, there's no way this is appropriate. They literally hid her passport just to get her to stay behind. And that's personally an entirely different level of crazy, and personally, I think it's time for them to move out. They have clearly been staying there for a little bit too long, and they're a little bit too comfortable with the handouts that they're clearly receiving. So if I was in your shoes, I would start making those arrangements sooner than later, because these stepdaughters sound incredibly selfish, and they don't care about you, your vacation, or your daughter in the slightest. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Am I the jerk for banning my sister-in-law from my house over the tomato sauce that she ruined? Here's what happened. So I have an older brother who's married to his wife who's 33 years old. I get along well with her, except for this one point. If you don't keep an eye on her, she will get into the kitchen and add seasonings to whatever is cooking. She thinks she's fixing stuff, but in reality, she's kind of ruining our food. This Saturday, I received 40 pounds of tomatoes. It took me the whole weekend to turn it into a sauce that I was planning to can. I can it plain, and then I add whatever seasonings and herbs is needed, depending on the recipe. They came to take a bag of spare clothes for one of their kids, and in the 5 minutes it took me to get it, she managed to get into the kitchen, add salt, pepper, olive oil, garlic powder, and Italian herbs to all 5 of the pots that were simmering on the stove. And when I asked her what she was doing, she had the audacity to say, "This sauce needed some taste, so I added some for you." Like, I've never told her to not touch what I was cooking before. I was so angry that I knew I couldn't be calm talking with her. So I simply walked to my brother, told him to take the clothes and his wife, and that she is no longer welcome in my house. Now, she had followed me and was shocked and started apologizing, but I just kept ignoring her. I added that he should come by tomorrow to take the sauce that his wife ruined, because otherwise it would be thrown away, and that I expected 40 pounds of replacement tomatoes. They left, and he came back with the tomatoes, an apology letter from her, and an apology letter for the carrot cake that I made previously. But I told him that I stand by my decision. But now my parents got involved. Since I am the one that usually hosts, and since she is not allowed in my house, I told them to make alternate plans for Memorial Day. My husband says that I am in the right, but my parents say that my reaction is way overblown. So this honestly begs the question, am I the jerk for banning my sister-in-law from my house after she ruined my tomato sauce? I don't think you're the jerk in this situation, because what she's doing is really weird. You don't just just go into someone's kitchen and start adding all these other ingredients simply because you think it's gonna make it taste better. Like she's just adding whatever she wants and says, okay, this will make it taste better. Like what are you talking about? Doing that without asking is so toxic. So for the original poster, I don't blame you for getting upset. And I don't blame you for saying, nope, you're not coming back to my house. Maybe this is a temporary thing, but at least for this weekend and this celebration, your sister-in-law is gonna learn a valuable lesson. And honestly, I don't think there's anything wrong with that in the slightest. Today, I messed up by accidentally donating $15,000 to a charity when all I intended to donate was about $150. And once I started receiving hundreds of messages online thanking me for my donation, I knew that I was in trouble. Here's what happened. So this happened in February of last year, but my friends have been telling me that I need to put this online. So here goes nothing. My wife and I are both 31 years old at the time of this story, and we moved into a new 3-unit apartment building in San Francisco. One of our neighbors is a 70-something-year-old retired veteran. We'll call him Joe. That's not his real name. For context, Joe is a white American guy, and he's also a devout Hindu priest. One day, I ran into Joe in my hallway, and he tells me about this charity that he manages for a community in Bangladesh. I wanted to support my neighbor and the charity, so I asked Joe to send me the GoFundMe link. The next day at work, I go on the GoFundMe page and donate $150. Well, or so I thought. Moments later, I get a text on my phone warning me of an unusually large transaction on my credit card. I'm confused, and I swipe it open to look at the text message. It says I have made a payment of $15,000 on GoFundMe. Now, immediately, I'm sweating. How could I have donated $15,000? I spend the next 10 to 15 minutes retracing my steps, and finally, I realize my credit card starts with the numbers 4 and 1. It seems I had accidentally started typing my credit card information while my cursor was still on the donation box. And just like that, $150 became just a little bit over $15,000. I call GoFundMe support line in a panic, and when I finally connect with a human, I explain what happened. He tells me not to worry, and they will initiate a refund of the transaction, which should process in 3 to 7 business days, which is a huge relief. But then I ask the agent if the charity will be able to see the donation on the GoFundMe page until it is refunded. The agent then asks me what I mean by that. So I ask him, what do you mean? What do I mean? Will they be able to see the $15,000 donation? Unfortunately, yes, the agent tells me they will be able to see it until the refund process is complete. I tell him that's a big problem, as the entire GoFundMe had hardly raised that much money at that point. Surely they will notice their fundraiser doubling overnight, right? My plan was to knock on Joe's door the following morning to give him the full story so that he could pass it along to his contacts in Bangladesh. But when I woke up the next morning, I looked at my phone and I saw I had 40 plus notifications on Facebook. Someone had sent me a friend request, had liked many of my posts, and had sent me many messages. Immediately, I was concerned when I saw that the individual messaging me had a Hindu name, but I never could have imagined what I saw when I opened his first message. The man had sent me a video of himself from Bangladesh, surrounded by dozens of impoverished and hungry people holding bags of food, thanking me by name for my generous donation. At this point, I've leapt out of my bed and I'm pacing around the room. Part of me wants to scream, part of me wants to crack up laughing. I start swiping through the man's messages, and it is picture after picture of poor Bangladeshis thanking me for my kind donation. Literally hundreds of photos of frail, elderly, disabled, and malnourished individuals holding signs with my name on it, thanking me profusely. Needless to say, I couldn't live with myself just donating $150 after seeing how the community responded to the $15,000. I decided the least I could do was be able to add a zero, and so I donated $1,500 once the original donation was refunded. The charity's host was incredibly gracious and understanding, and he explained to me that $1,500 goes very far in Bangladesh. Ultimately, I think the whole experience is a win-win. I helped a great cause, and I got a funny story in the end. That is literally worst case scenario. I can't imagine accidentally donating $15,000 to a charity. Also, why is your credit card set up in such a way where that kind of transaction can go through right away? Like, that sounds like a massive security risk for you and your credit cards, and that is not something that I would let happen ever again. But thankfully, everybody in this situation was really cool about it, and they were still very grateful for your donation, even if it wasn't $15,000. Am I the jerk for threatening to never talk to my dad again if he forces me to give up my cat, all for the sake of his new girlfriend? Here's what happened. So I live with just my dad. My mom left when I was 5 years old, and I haven't seen her since. And 2 years ago, my dad started dating a woman by the name of Karen. Karen is not her her real name. She's okay. We definitely aren't close. It's kind of me doing my thing and Karen doing her own thing. I figured I'll be out of the house soon, so it doesn't really matter if my dad's girlfriend and I don't get along. Except we now have a big problem. I have a cat I got when I was 13 years old, and she was just a kitten. She has helped me through a lot of tough times. When Karen first came over, she saw my cat and said that she was allergic. Well, I personally don't believe it. She has been over multiple days, and her eyes don't get puffy or watery. She doesn't sound congested or anything, and she also doesn't get hives or a rash or anything like that. So I'm calling baloney, because she constantly talks about how bad her allergies are, and yet I see no symptoms. Well, Sunday, my dad proposed, and of course, Karen said yes. Her apartment lease is coming up for her to renew if she wanted to, but last night they were talking about Karen just moving in with us. Then she said to me, well, if I'm gonna be living here full time, the cat's got to go. She complained she's not always gonna be dealing with her allergies, but I told them no, I'm not willing to give up my cat. My dad pleaded with me, saying it's unfair to Karen to have to deal with her allergies all the time while living with us. Karen kind of had a smirk on her face while my dad was trying to bargain with me. In that moment, I knew she was definitely faking it. After Karen left, I told my dad I will never forgive him if he makes me get rid of my cat. And I also told her that I think Karen is faking being allergic to cats. He then got mad and told me I'm being a selfish brat and I just don't want him to be happy. I know some people will say my cat is just a pet, but she's honestly family to me, and at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Obviously, first and foremost, you are not the jerk in this situation, and this is an unfortunate window that you can see into how you're going to be treated in this family. Karen is going to take priority, and your dad's going to be looking to you to try and solve this problem. I mean, what a travesty. How can this lady honestly say, it's time to get rid of the cat, I'm moving in? Like, what are you talking about? I'm of the same opinion as the original poster. Cats or animals or dogs or whatever, they are a part of the family, and they are something that you need to take care of. And it's really funny that your dad's saying that you're being a selfish brat and that you don't want him to be happy, when in reality, he should be trying to take care of you, as well as your needs. The original poster, by the way, is only a teenager in this situation. So the fact that the dad would be this selfish towards their daughter, and obviously treating their kid like garbage just for the sake of this weird lady he's marrying, is honest proof that he has tunnel vision to how toxic this lady is. I mean, that cat was there long before this girlfriend came along, and in my opinion, it's incredibly unfair and very cruel for the original poster to give it up, all because this stupid Karen wants to get her way. Am I the jerk for not wanting to go on a trip with my pregnant fiance that I literally cannot afford? Here's what happened. My fiance and I are expecting a baby in November. We both have full-time jobs, a mortgage, and 2 dogs. I cover around 80 to 90% of the household expenses, including the mortgage, the power, insurance, internet, and water bill. She only pays for gas and groceries, and I usually cover the bill when we eat out. We've had this arrangement for several years, and we have this arrangement because my income is a lot higher than hers, and she has a car payment and student loans she's paying off. Recently, with a baby on the way, I've expressed the need for more careful spending. We've been discussing bigger expenses. However, today she suggested on going to Mexico to visit her godkids. She got upset when I expressed my inability to afford an unplanned trip, especially considering the expenses that we've already had this year. We took a trip to Denver in April, went to South Carolina last month for my uncle's birthday party, and I'm soon heading back to South Carolina to discuss his will since he has cancer and wants my assistance with carrying out his will. The tickets for the Mexico trip alone are currently around $600 each, and the total cost of the trip will likely be at least $2,000, considering other expenses as well. When she asked if I wanted to go, I honestly told her that I can't afford it due to the unexpected expenses we've already had this year. I have more credit card debt than savings at the moment, and I need to focus on reducing it. Additionally, as first-time parents, we should be financially prepared for any unexpected expenses that may arise. I also reminded her that I lent her $2,000 recently to pay her income tax bill, which she promised to repay as soon as she could save up the money. She accused me of being selfish and claimed this might be our last chance to travel before the baby arrives. I suggested a more budget-friendly alternative, like a local trip to San Antonio, using my accumulated points for a 2-night stay. However, she instantly rejected the idea and insisted on seeing her godkids. I then told her that if she really wants to go, she can do so, as I believe it's more important for us to be financially stable before the baby arrives in 5 months. We haven't made any major purchases yet, despite her sister's planning a baby shower. In fact, last night I sent her a screenshot showing my credit card debt and my savings account to her. I told her I'm basically paycheck to paycheck now because life has been a bit more expensive these past few months than expected. I've cut back on streaming services, eating out, and we used to eat out once a week for a date night. She said I'm overreacting and she would sell some concert tickets that she had bought to get money back. She said that money comes and goes and I should live in the moment. I told her I'm more worried about making sure that we have a home to live in, and her suggestion was that we could just sell and downsize. What should I do? Your wife is being irrational. Seriously? She wants you to sell and downsize your home situation just so she can go to Mexico to visit her godkids? Like, seriously, what is wrong with her? This is so inappropriate and so disrespectful of all the times you step up and literally pay for everything. Like, she clearly just doesn't understand that you don't have all this money waiting around. And she's even seen your bank account and screenshots of your credit card debt. Like, come on, she can't be that dense, right? She is not thinking like a future mom. That baby is gonna hit her like a hurricane if she keeps spending money this way. Like, babies are super expensive. This is not gonna be a simple thing. So hopefully she can find some kind of reason out of what you're saying, because you're literally living paycheck to paycheck. And the way she's acting right now is incredibly selfish. An entitled customer demands service after hours at a gas station I work at. And after insulting me, I come back with the funniest retort I possibly could think of. And I'm honestly so proud of how it went down. Here's what happened. So I want to start off by saying that this just happened last night. I currently work the night shift at a gas station and convenience store in the United States. Thankfully, this one isn't open 24/7, and it's open from 5:30 in the morning until 11 o'clock at night. By the time 11 o'clock rolls around, I was just finished up with the last few remaining customers. As the last customer is walking out the door, I head to the front to close up for the night. Before I could do so, in walks a middle-aged man asking if he can buy some cigarettes. I should note that this same guy was in here earlier, buying a lighter about 5 minutes before we closed. He seemed a tiny bit abrasive when picking out which lighter he wanted, but I just chalked it up as him having a bad day or something like that and wanting to have a smoke but finding himself with no lighter. After he walks in asking if he can buy a pack of smokes, I told him that we're closed for tonight, but he's insisting, saying to me, "Come on, it'll be real quick." Now keep in mind, if he had come in even a minute before closing time, I still would have likely helped him out. However, it was already 10 minutes after closing. I've got a store to clean for the next morning, and I was already pushing it, serving the last few customers past 11 o'clock. Any more time after that, and I would get in a lot of trouble with management. I again tell him that we're closed, and as I'm just about to apologize for the inconvenience, he gets this really upset look on his face and says, "Oh, you're just a little jerk then, aren't ya?" It was honestly too perfect. I was waiting for the right opportunity to burst out this retort. With my best matter-of-fact tone of voice, I said, "Yep, I'm a really big jerk. You're not getting your cigarettes though." After that, he walked out saying something else, but I couldn't hear him over me saying, "Have a good night," and I promptly locked the doors right behind him. And I'm not gonna lie, I was definitely smiling to myself at the end of the night. When I worked in customer service, I literally could not stand when people came in at the last second. Like, seriously, you had all day to get here. I understand people have work, I understand that people have a lot going on in their lives, but you couldn't have gotten here just a little bit quicker? Like, seriously, you're coming in right now? And it doesn't help that the guy in the story literally came in earlier to buy a lighter. Like, what did you buy the lighter for, sir? Did you buy it just to look at it? You made a big fuss over which one you were getting. It honestly feels really silly. And the original poster has it right. They probably would get in a lot of trouble if they did decide to keep this customer there and try and help them out. Because knowing my luck at least, someone else would probably walk through the door and hold me up even longer. Like, I'm not trying to get in trouble for taking overtime, people. You gotta go. So good for the original poster for putting this weird guy in his place. He clearly had a really bad attitude, and that bad attitude will never get him anywhere. My entitled boss treats me badly, bullies me at work, and eventually drags me out the back door, slamming my leg in the door in the process. So I decide to get revenge by getting the police involved and slowly but surely destroying his business. Here's what happened. So this happened about 7 to 8 years ago. I was working at a small cafe, which was owned by a young woman in her mid-20s. She was a lot of fun to work with. I put my best foot forward, and it had a great sense of community. Almost every customer was a regular. It was a small town near a lot of car and boat repair shops, and directly next to us was a family-owned business. They were very religious and very kind. I loved the environment there and the customers. It was a regular thing to be given flowers and little things like that. Anyways, my boss didn't really have it in her to run the cafe. Business was great, but it took a lot of her time, and she was young and didn't want to be tethered to it. She sold it pretty easily, and the next owner, a big guy that we'll call Albert, that's not his real name, was gregarious and laughed a lot. He told a lot of jokes. He wanted me to stay on. I knew how to run the place and how to make all of the sandwiches and so forth. I thought this would be great, even if I would miss my old boss. The first day with Albert, he was immediately impatient with me. I couldn't do anything fast enough, and he hated the way I prepared the food. Usually, one person ran the till and took orders, and the other prepared said orders. It was a fast process with me and my old boss. With Albert, he messed up every time and blamed my short form way of writing our orders. So I started writing everything out, which he would still mess up somehow. He accused me of patronizing him and finally of sabotaging him. During close-up, he would berate me further. I dreaded coming to work after a while, which was too bad because he had me working every day but one. His wife was frequently there to help out, and she was always friendly and funny, and she really did like me. Albert didn't treat me any better when she was around. He snapped at me a lot in front of our customers, and a few of the guys had talked to me about it. He treated her with a lot of contempt as well. One day, maybe after a month of this, I couldn't take it anymore. He called me stupid for some reason or another, and his reasoning really just didn't matter to me anymore. Up until that point, he talked to me like I was an idiot, but had not actually called me a name until now. I told him, "Look, buddy, I'm not your wife. You don't talk to me like that." And when I said that, he flipped out. He grabbed me by the apron and dragged me toward the back door, yelling at me to get out while also saying, "Who do you think you are?" I shouted for him to get his hands off of me, and while I was struggling to get my apron off, he shoved me outside. He still had a hold of my apron, then let go just as he stepped back and tried to slam the door. It was a heavy reinforced door with a panic door for unloading stock, alley access, and so on. My leg was still inside, and the minute he slammed it on me, I screamed and fell back. I think he knew that he messed up, but he shut the door on me and locked it. I was shaking with adrenaline and crying some, but more than anything else, I was angry. I got up from the ground, and the father of the family business next door had heard me shout and met me as I circled around to the front. I wasn't really that badly hurt, but because I was crying and shaking, he immediately assumed it was much worse than it really was. He put his arms around me and wanted me to come into his store, and I saw Albert watching us through the front window of the cafe. I laid it on thick. I cried even harder. I told the dad what happened in big gulping sobs. I held my leg and was overall pretty pathetic, and Albert saw the whole thing. After that performance, I went right home. I contacted my old boss before anything else. She still had to deal with this guy, and I didn't want to cause any trouble for her. She had pretty much finished up her business with him, save for a few details, and told me he had gotten belligerent with her on more than one occasion in a way that was entirely inappropriate. She didn't like the idea of me contacting the cops, but since I didn't see a way that this would actually impact her at this point, that's exactly what I did. The cops gave me a few options. I could press charges, and I was young and pretty and now unemployed, so I didn't really want to do that. Or the cops would go have a long heart-to-heart with him, and I thought that would be a pretty good start. They took pictures of the bruising on my leg just in case. I do bruise pretty easily, and it looked a mess for maybe a month or so. A couple days later, Albert starts texting me like mad. He wants to meet me and give me my last check, but I told him he could just mail it. He refused and kept insisting to come to the cafe in the morning before opening just so we could talk. This back and forth went on for way too long, so I cut him off and I told him to mail it to me or I'd come with the cops during rush just to get it. After my check, I decided I wanted my record of employment as well. There is no reason I needed it at the time, but I just wanted it. I dodged him for a few days until he sent me one, and it had correction fluid all over it, which is not allowed. I dodged him yet again until I got the replacement. I already had another job at this point, and I just wanted to needle him. 2 weeks after the dance in the doorway, I go back to the neighborhood and I stop by the garages and I shop to say hello to everyone. They're glad to see me and they wondered where I went. Albert told them that I quit to work elsewhere. They mentioned the cafe has been pretty slow lately, and it turns out the dad from the business next door had mentioned what happened to a few people already. So I share my side of the story with everyone. I found a way to bring it up in gory detail to everyone. So I stopped into each shop just to say hello to everybody in the neighborhood, just to show them the bruise on my leg from Albert. Maybe 6 months later, I'm in town and I come around to check on the cafe just to say hi to the guys. It was always tucked way back on the main road. Nobody driving by would notice it. it and think to stop in it. The local businesses around it were its lifeblood, and without that lifeblood, Albert had to actually close the cafe down pretty quickly. Everyone had stopped going. In a small way, it was really sad to see it closed, dark, and empty. I had a lot of fun there, and losing the cafe and moving on to another job basically meant I lost contact with all the guys. I think if I hadn't lit the fire in the first place, Albert would have eventually ended up ruining that place anyways, but it still feels delicious that I beat him to his own failure in the first place. What an awesome story that is. I'm surprised you didn't get some kind of lawyer involved or try to press charges in some kind of way. I mean, karma did favor you in the end, but I absolutely would have pursued this a lot further than just like a strong talking to. But also, it's so terrible that you got treated so badly. You loved your previous boss, you guys worked really well together, and then this guy comes in and just treats you like garbage. He bullies you around, he calls you these horrible names, and then he has the audacity to literally drag you out of the store and slam your leg into the door. Like, that's not okay. That's also illegal, and he should have gone to jail in my opinion. I also feel really bad for the wife in this situation. It is truly awful that this is what was going on, probably behind closed doors as well. So good for you for getting revenge in a roundabout way. Going to everybody around that store really did tank his business, and honestly, he absolutely had it coming. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Am I the jerk for ambushing my sister at her wedding reception, all because she told me her wedding was child-free, when in reality it actually wasn't? So my sister and I are not very close. We have a good relationship, at least before this all happened. My sister got married recently, and she told me that the wedding was child-free. I have a daughter, and I asked my sister if she could come, but she said to me, "Sorry, but we're sticking to the rules." I managed to arrange for my daughter to stay at a friend's house for a couple of days, since the wedding was in a different city. So I went to the wedding and I saw quite a few older children, including my other siblings' kids. And I know what you're thinking. This sounds like I should have known from before from my other siblings, but I never thought to ask if they're bringing their kids or anything like that. I did ask my brother at the wedding, and he was told the child-free limit was only for really young kids, the ones that are very disruptive. So it was pretty obvious that my sister lied to me about not bringing my daughter. We went through the ceremony, and towards the end of the reception, I pulled my sister aside and I told her that she had completely lied to me and there were plenty of other kids here. She looked pretty uncomfortable and said it wasn't a big deal, but I replied that I deserve an apology, and so does my daughter at some point. My sister then got mad and said that I was ambushing her at her own wedding, and it's her and her partner's choice on what they do. We eventually ended the conversation there and went off to talk to other people. She sent me a text message later saying I was being selfish and I'm the one that should be apologizing to her and her husband, especially for making a big deal out of this. I will admit that I sent a not so nice text message back to her about her caring more about aesthetics other than people. Now it's sort of blown up within our family. So am I the jerk for supposedly ambushing my sister at her wedding, all because she wouldn't let my kids show up to her wedding? Honestly, it kind of sounds like she was targeting your daughter. She clearly had no other problem with other kids being there, but for some reason she didn't want your kid there. And that is really, really toxic in my opinion. And if I was in your shoes, I absolutely would have done that too. I mean, how is it that all the other kids are welcome to this wedding, but your kid specifically, oh no, we can't have her come along? That would simply be too much. There's literally no indication that your kid wouldn't behave any better than any of the other kids. And it really doesn't sound like there was any big difference in ages in the slightest. So personally, I don't think you're the jerk on this one. You didn't do anything wrong by talking to your sibling, and you waited until the end of the night to talk to her in the first place. And I am right there with the original poster. Their sister absolutely needs to apologize to you as well as your daughter. An entitled boyfriend gets upset when we tell him to get lost when he's trying to visit and spend some quality time with his girlfriend in the hospital. The entitled boyfriend then tries to impersonate the patient's father, but I wasn't having it, and eventually I shut him down completely in the funniest way possible. Here's what happened. So I used to work at a very nice private hospital where the place looked like a hotel. The food was great and the service was unrivaled. We were voted best private hospital in the country, and this happened quite a few times. And all around, people were happy and they were getting taken care of. The nurses were mostly old school, stern but very passionate about patient care, with no time for anything that stops them from doing their job. My job was to focus on marketing and complaints. And to be honest, I didn't have a lot of work on the complaint side, but every now and again something would come up. If there was an incident, the RNs would usually come and warn me to expect something and give their side of the story. One morning as I got to work, one of the nurses was waiting at my door to update me on an an incident the previous night. There was an 18-year-old patient who had a small operation, but was prone to dizziness and fainting. Now, slip and falls are a big thing in hospitals, and these incidents get monitored very closely. Since she was a slip and fall risk, they moved her into a private room right in front of the nurse's station so that she can be monitored throughout the day and night. One night, the tattoo-cladded 20-something-year-old boyfriend comes to visit and forgets that this is in fact a hospital and not a hotel. The old-school stern nurse realized something is amiss when the room's doors were closed, and after she pushed open the door, the curtains around the bed were also drawn. Seeing privacy take second priority to a patient's healing and safety in a hospital, the old-school nurse wasn't having any of this. She pulls the curtains open, pulls a boyfriend out of the hospital bed, and gave them both a talking to. The tattooed boyfriend left soon afterwards, apparently furious that his evening was ruined. Sure enough, 2 hours after the nurse visited my office, I get mail from the patient's father detailing how his daughter's privacy was invaded the night before, and how she had a private conversation with her boyfriend, and how they were unfairly treated by a nurse. I was surprised that an older gentleman would write an email to a hospital with so many spelling errors, including such a complete lack of punctuation. But the email address that they sent it on, something like tattooguy@gmail or something like that, was a total giveaway as to who the real author was. Now, technically, I was just able to reply to the email detailing our experience and side of the story. However, sharing private patient information on an email to be unconfirmed is bound to get me in serious trouble. So I did what any sane and perhaps slightly malicious person would do. I called document control and I asked them to pull the email address on file for me. And this one happened to belong to her mom. I forwarded the email to her, mentioning that I received the following email from her daughter's father, but since she is the only contact person on file, we need to stick with the person that we have permission to contact. I then asked her if she could share our response with him. I then detailed what the nurse told me about the patient being a slip and fall risk that requires constant monitoring, about the boyfriend visiting, about the door and curtain being closed, and the nurse catching them in the hospital bed together. I apologized on behalf of the nurse for invading their privacy, but explained that open doors are protocol to ensure a patient's safety, and our main priority is getting a patient safe, healthy, and back home as soon as possible. I ended the mail with the contact details and invited her to contact me if she had any further questions. Well, if the patient didn't know about the incident, they definitely knew now. I am told the daughter was well behaved for the remainder of the time, and the boyfriend didn't stop by once during the rest of the patient's stay. So, lesson learned. Don't include your parents' details on your hospital file as your main contact details if you don't want them contacted. Don't try to catfish a hospital employee, and respect a hospital for what it is, a place of healing and not a hotel. The boyfriend in this story is a complete idiot. Why on earth would you try to lie and be like, I can't believe you treated my daughter this way? Like, what were you thinking? You were clearly trying to do something pretty sketchy and nefarious, and you got caught in the act. Instead of just running away with your tail between your legs and saying, hey, let's catch up when you're better, you instead tried to impersonate this lady's parents. Like, seriously, that's the dumbest thing you could have done, because it sounds like this employee knows exactly what they're doing, and you're not about to pull a fast one on them. Am I the jerk for telling my parents I won't be getting a traditional part-time job? Here's what happened. So my parents recently have been telling me to start making my own money to pay for unneeded stuff like expensive clothes or nights out with my friends, which is fair enough. They told me to get a traditional part-time job, working at a store or a restaurant or babysitting or whatever. I decided that those sounded time-consuming and boring, so I decided to utilize my good taste in clothing to make money in a more hands-off way. I used money that I have already, remnants of birthday money mostly, to go to a thrift store and buy clothing I knew would be in trend right now and sell them, either online or to people I know, then withdraw some of the money from personal spending and put most back towards buying more stuff. This is optimal because now, as of a month after starting, I'm making pretty good money, and this is for very little work. I mean 1 to 2 hours every weekend at a thrift store, and then another 1 to 2 hours to pose for photos modeling with the clothes and the items, and then I post them online. And even that little amount of work is something I find really fun. So all in all, it seems better than working longer hours at something I would find boring for similar pay. My parents are angry because I took what was supposed to be a teachable moment about hard work and just ruined it for them by finding a way to make money that's not hard work at all. They demand in order for me to learn about hard work, I need to quit doing this and get an actual part-time job. I see no logical reason to. As I said, what I have going is quicker and much more enjoyable than a part-time job, and this is all for similar amounts of money earned. To put it simply, why would I work more hours doing something I like less just for the same amount of money? It sounds irrational, right? They think that I'm being a jerk and that I'm just being lazy here. I agree that there's a certain amount of laziness involved, but if my system works, it works. So am I the jerk for not getting a part-time job in the way that they wanted me to? Honestly, you're not the jerk at all. You really don't have to get a part-time job that, by the way, you're probably going to hate just to experience and understand the working world. You obviously make enough money in comparison to a part-time job. Why would you go to that if you could just make that money here? Plus, what you're doing takes a lot more motivation and ingenuity, and this could very easily become a business for you, like you never know. In fact, I'm really surprised that your parents aren't just cheering you on more. If I had a kid who was doing this to make money, I would not only be super impressed, but I would also be like, wow, do more of this. In fact, if you doubled your time doing this, you very easily could make double your money. So honestly, you are not the jerk. Your parents are being silly, thinking that you need a soul-crushing part-time job just to appreciate what it means to work hard. Am I the jerk for demanding that my sister pay for childcare so that I can attend her wedding? So my sister's wedding is in a couple of months. She recently sent out invitations, and I was invited as a regular guest, but not as a bridesmaid or a maid of honor, since we live a state apart, and obviously there's a certain level of involvement and time that goes into being part of the bridal party, which I completely understand. I want to be there for my sister, and obviously I'd like to see her get married. The problem is that I'm a single mom. My son is 6 years old, and when he's not at school, I need to be home watching him. So being out for hours at a time isn't really in the cards for me right now. My sister's wedding is also child-free. Since it's taking place in her state, I'd need to commute, and I'd probably have to be gone from my house for 2 full days. I can't have family watch my son since they'll all be at the wedding, and I don't really have friends who can babysit for 2 days. I contacted my sister and asked if she'd be willing to let my son come to the wedding with me, and explained to her that he couldn't be left alone so young, and that I didn't have anyone to watch him. She responded by telling me her no children policy was strict, and she wasn't making any exceptions. I explained my situation again, and said I would need some form of childcare or to bring him with me. I then asked her if she would pay for me to hire a nanny or a babysitter to watch him. She then got offended and said children and weddings are both parts of life, and I need to just figure it out. It's my kid and my problem. Which is true, but this is her wedding, and she's making it a problem by not allowing me to bring my kid. I told her she could either pay for my childcare or I wouldn't be going to her wedding, which all she did was call me ridiculous and entitled. She said she shouldn't have to pay for my child, and that part of being an adult is knowing how to take care of that kind of thing. I think that's ridiculous. Money is tight. Childcare is expensive. I can't magically afford for someone to watch my 6-year-old, and most people would just let me bring him to the wedding. My sister says she's definitely not paying for childcare, and also said, well, I guess you're just not coming to the wedding then. My whole family is mad at me for not being there for my sister. So it begs the question, am I the jerk for telling my sister she needs to pay for childcare, or I'm not going to her wedding? To be completely honest, I really do think you're the jerk in this situation. Your sister is getting married. You really think she has time to try and set up childcare for specifically you? She is already stressed out about trying to get this wedding together, and here you are trying to throw a wrench in the wheel and saying to her, if you don't pay for my child's care, I'm not going to your wedding. Like, that is already so ridiculous. The wedding is probably really expensive as well. Do you really think she has money to spare to pay for your kid? And your sister is 100% right. You are an adult. It's time to figure this out. And if you can't figure it out, well then you just don't go. You send her a message saying, hey, I can't leave my son for that long. Unfortunately, I'm not going to be there. I wish you the best, or something like that. You don't go back and be like, I'm not going to your wedding and it's your fault. Like, no, that's not how it works. You can either find a babysitter and show up and be there for her wedding, or you can stay home with your kid. That's the end of it. It's nobody else's fault that you can't figure that out. And it's also nobody else's fault that you can't afford it. So honestly, I think you need to drop the entitled attitude. Saying stuff like, most people would just let me bring them, is not going to help your case at all. You need to accept, and you probably already knew this ahead of time, that no children are welcome at the wedding. And you can either respect that and find a way to make it work, or you can make the adult decision and decide to not go. My entitled sister is making my life a living nightmare in my own home, causing so much chaos, being incredibly lazy, and refusing to get a job to pay her own way. And after 6 months of dealing with her garbage, I am simply at the end of my rope, and I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So I bought my house back last year. My mom lives with me because of health issues, and when she found out my sister got kicked out of her apartment, my mom asked me to let her come and live with us. us. For starters, my sister and I were never close. In fact, in high school, she would often make me walk home. My mom and I were told that she would need help finding a new place to live, and she would need to find work to move back out. While this has been the biggest lie I've ever been told, she has been living in my house for about 6 months now, and it has been an absolute nightmare. Every rule I set, she has broken. For starters, she would trash my house and then yell at me to clean it up because she claims she's the guest and she should not have to clean. She also doesn't pick up her dog's waste, and her dog would even go on the neighbor's driveway, and then the neighbor would complain to me. And when that happens, my sister would then start screaming at the neighbor. So needless to say, my neighbors are now starting to hate me. My sister also eats all of the food in the house, which then leads to me complaining that there's no food for me and my mom. I have seriously lost 30 pounds since she started living here. When my mom and I cook, she'll complain that it's gross and then demands that we go buy something else. And when we ask her why she doesn't just cook the dinner herself, she will then go back to screaming that she's a guest and she should not have to cook dinner. Now, she lost her job a month ago and started demanding that I give her money when I told her I can't do that because most of my money goes to bills and whatever's left over for groceries or animal care or stuff like that. She starts screaming because she needs money for makeup and face wash because she claims she can't look like trash like the rest of us. Now, for me personally, I don't have a problem with buying this stuff for her, especially if the makeup and the face wash was like maybe 20 bucks or something like that. But no, she wants the ones that are $30 or $50 because they are the only one that work for her. She is constantly attacking me and my mom all the time, and she laughs like a hyena when she makes my mom have a breakdown. And I also really fear for the safety of my pets. My mom and I are not wanting to kick her out because we don't know what will happen to her, and most of our family want nothing to do with her. If next month comes around and she hasn't changed at all, I may have to kick her out myself. We don't know what else to do. We are starting to not like coming home, and I love my home. But with my sister being there, she's starting to make me want to sell it just so I can get a new one so that I can get out of here. What should I do? What a horrible situation to be stuck in. First off, you have this new house that you bought, and you were probably excited to live in it with your mom. And then your sister comes around after getting kicked out of her apartment and literally makes your life a living nightmare. Like seriously, let's talk about some of the things that she does. First and foremost, the fact that she's saying she's a guest in your house and she shouldn't have to cook or clean or anything like that is honestly ridiculous. Of course she should have to clean and cook. What is she talking about? Your sister has literally lived there for 6 months. It's time to step up and do something in the house, not just laying around and expecting everything to be done for you. That is so unfair for you as well as your mother. Her behavior is absolutely inappropriate, and it's honestly kind of no surprise that she got kicked out of her apartment. I mean, look at the way she's acting. This is probably why she got kicked out. This also makes me question if the original poster knew about their sister's behavior. Like, did they know ahead of time that she would be an absolute nightmare, that she would make everybody's lives really miserable, and she would be this lazy, freeloading person that's currently living in the original poster's house? Like, please tell me you didn't know that ahead of time. I mean, don't get me wrong. I totally understand that this is your sister and you absolutely want to try and take care of family. But if you knew that she was acting like this in previous living situations, as well as the fact that the other members of your family don't want anything to do with her, then this was seriously a bad move of letting her live with you at all, because this is now what you have to deal with. So if I was in your shoes, I would absolutely be giving her an ultimatum. I would be saying, hey, if you want to live here, you got to straighten up your act, start paying rent, and carrying your weight around this house. It's not fair for me as well as our sick mother to have to give you money and take care of you at the drop of a hat. Get a job and pay your way, or you can get out. And yeah, personally, I can totally understand your hesitation. You don't want her to get kicked out because you're not sure what's going to happen to her. But seriously, that's not really up to you. If your sister wants to ruin her life, that really is on her. I mean, you tried to help her and said, hey, live with me and mom, let's figure this out. But she straight up lied to you by saying she's going to get a job as well as find a new place to live. So personally, if I was in your shoes, there's no way I would sell my house, but instead I would tell my sister that if she wants to live here, she either needs to fix her attitude and get a job, or she needs to simply get out. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. An entitled Karen demands that I hand over my Nintendo Switch, claiming that her daughter wants it more and that I shouldn't have it because I'm a grown man. Here's what happened. So to start things out, I sat down on the train, and a little girl sits down next to me with her Karen mom sitting across from her. About 10 minutes after the train starts to move, I was starting to play a game on my Nintendo Switch, Switch. The little girl sees it and asks if she can play, and I said yes, but I told her to ask her mom first. The mom says yes, so I just let her play on it. I also ask what stop they're getting off at, as I'm getting off a few stops before the end of the line. Eventually, after about an hour, I'm coming very close to the station, and I said to her, "I'm sorry, sweetie, I'm getting off here." And the little girl hands back my Nintendo Switch with a big smile and even a bigger thank you. It's been nice and quiet for an hour, and it was fantastic seeing the happiness on the little girl's face while she was playing on my Nintendo Switch. But that's right about when it all went downhill. The mom sitting across from her turned into an entitled Karen at the drop of a hat. This entitled Karen then says, "My daughter is having so much fun with the Switch. Can't she just keep playing?" Now, when she said this, I said, "No, I'm sorry, I'm getting off at the next stop." But it's right about then that this Karen starts to go nuclear. She shouts out, "My daughter is having fun with it. What's a grown man like you doing playing with a children's toy? Just give it to her right now." I said to her, I have given it to her for the past hour to play with. And by the way, this is all while you've been playing on your phone." The Karen then screams at me and says, "If you gave it to her, then it's hers. It's not yours anymore." And when I heard her say that, I was seriously baffled. I then interjected and told her, "Ma'am, she was borrowing it from me. Have you ever heard of the concept before?" Thankfully, I saw my stop coming up. And without further ado, I picked up my bag with the Switch packed nicely away and then turned to the little girl and said, "You seem like a nice, well-behaved little girl. Please don't turn out like your mother." I then walked off the train after getting the last word in. I breathed in the sweet air of freedom and then met my mates in the pub where I told them this story. And the best part about this is that this is England. And until today, I thought those Karen types of people only existed in America. But boy, was I completely wrong. Yeah, that lady was seriously crazy. Like, first off, you need to take care of your kid on the train, and you should not rely on strangers to keep them entertained. Like, it is seriously not the original poster's fault that the kid was bored and looking at his Nintendo Switch. And by the way, there's nothing wrong with having a Nintendo Switch and being an adult. It is literally one of the best consoles out there right now, and it's something you can enjoy on the go like the original poster. So that statement from the entitled Karen was just off the bat really uncalled for. But also, how insane do you have to be to seriously think that just because someone borrowed your Switch, they now somehow own it? Like, seriously, if this entitled Karen really wanted her daughter to have a Nintendo Switch, then she would pony up the money just like anybody else. So good for the original poster for not bending to this weird entitled Karen, because based on what we know, she absolutely does not sound like a good parent. Today, I messed up by going on a date with my friend, resulting in her using me for a free meal. Here's what happened. So I went on a date with one of my friends whom I will call Sarah. Sarah is not her real name. I also attend the same university as Sarah. I've always known that my friend has a thing for me, but I've always been reluctant to go on a date with her because I genuinely value our friendship and felt putting romance there would just mess things up. Well, about a week ago, I was hanging out with Sarah and our other mutual friend as they listened to me complain about my unfortunate dating history. The mutual friend then put out the idea of a date between Sarah and I. He did this mainly just to make the room temporarily awkward, but it led to a conversation where I essentially asked Sarah for a date. For the days leading up to the date, both Sarah and I became a lot more flirty, and I have to admit, I was kind of excited for the date itself. 2 days ago, I picked up Sarah, and we went to a fairly fancy restaurant. When the waiter came, I ordered my food. She then ordered basically 3 separate meals, and I didn't know what to say or how to question why she ordered so much food. When I finished my food, she barely ate half of one plate, and then she said that she wasn't actually hungry because she ate lunch right before she left her place. I then asked her why she ordered 3 meals, and she said one is for her mom's dinner since she always wanted to try this restaurant out, and the other meal is for her to eat with her mom during dinner. I then told her that I think it's nice that she got dinner for her mom. It's cute that she would do that, to which she responded by saying, "I should be thanking you since you're paying for it." I had told her that I would pay for the date, but I definitely never agreed to pay for her mom or her to get dinner when we had only gone out for lunch. The meal was expensive, but I would have been fine paying for her if she actually ate all 3 meals. Instead, it just all kind of felt really wrong. The rest of the date was absolutely ruined for me, and I was pretty much checked out of this date, and I was just going through the motions. After I left her at her place, I went radio silent on her, as I was still annoyed by what she did. Today, I wanted to just tell her that I think we should just go back to being friends, but as I opened our chat message with her, I read a message that she sent me shortly after our date. She was basically thanking me for the date, and then went on to pour out her feelings for me, and say that she has loved me for years, and the date was like a dream come true for her. I had to drive over to her place to try and be as gentle as possible, that the feelings are definitely not mutual, which did result in her crying and screaming at me as to why I was flirting with her before the date and why I even asked her out on the date. And needless to say, I honestly felt horrible after that interaction. I personally would not feel horrible about saying, you know what, I don't want to date this lady. She literally used you for 3 different meals, and that is totally unfair for you and your wallet. Like, what was she thinking? Did she really think that this was okay? She could just order 3 different meals and say, it's okay, he's gonna pay for it. And did she really think that wouldn't leave a bad taste in your mouth? Like, if that happened to me, I would not feel bad about turning her down. And if she asked me why I would have asked her out on the date, I would have said to her, I don't know, maybe I thought you were only gonna buy something for yourself and not for your mom and yourself later on. I mean, that really is super inconsiderate in my opinion, and that really would be a deal breaker. Like, that's a horrible first impression. So you didn't mess up. If anything, you probably dodged a really weird person who was just gonna use you for money and for food. And personally, I don't think you deserve that in the slightest. Am I the jerk for wanting my wife to stay up with me during a road trip just so she can talk to me and try and keep me company? Here's what happened. I want to start off by saying I'm writing this right now at the hotel where I'm at because I'm genuinely at a loss for words. I don't think I'm in the wrong, but at the same time, she looks really upset at me. For starters, my wife, myself, and our 2-year-old are going on our first road trip up to California. We rotate driving in shifts, but the problem is that when I was driving, my shift fell during the night, and so I was feeling really lonely and bored as I was driving. I'm not someone who can be left to his own thoughts very well, and I need people around me. I thrive on energy and excitement. My wife is a bit of the opposite. She is generally fine with being left alone and can sit quietly for hours and hours upon end. The problem is that around 11 o'clock p.m., I was driving and my wife and our son was in the back seat. I was feeling isolated, so I shook her awake, but then our son woke up. And well, you can probably guess what happens next. Once he quieted down, my wife began quietly blowing up at me about how much of a jerk I am. I told her that it wasn't fair for her to just sleep like that, and it made me feel like a driver. She then said that she doesn't force me to stay awake or engage with her, but I told her that that's a cheap blow because we're not the same people, and I kept my mouth shut while she was driving because I know she doesn't like distractions, even though it bothered me terribly. So the least she could do is to stop being selfish and help keep me sane. Despite my perfectly logical answer, she apparently got emotional and then started whisper screaming some garbage about how raising one toddler is hard enough and that she didn't know there was another one in the car who needed his whims catered to every moment. And at that point, since she got rude, I decided to disengage. Now our whole trip is falling apart and she's making me out to be the bad guy. So am I the jerk for wanting my wife to stay up with me during a road trip just so she could try and talk to me and keep me occupied? First off, I want to say that yeah, you are absolutely the jerk. Your wife has probably been driving all day and she just wanted to sleep. You've been relaxing, saying nothing, basically had every opportunity to rest and get ready for your shift. And instead of driving that shift and keeping quiet to let your wife and your son sleep, you decided that everybody's got to be awake. And that's so unfair for your wife. She is not an object. She is a living, breathing person who has needs, and right now she and your son need some sleep. But your selfish attitude really just completely spoiled the mood. She is 100% in the right, and you are absolutely wrong. And also, anytime someone's like, I'm perfectly logical and she's just too emotional, that's like a clear-cut sign that you're just toxic and that the other person is probably absolutely right. And in this case, that is exactly what's going on. And it's ironic that you would call her emotional and you're just some logical person when logic would say, hey, my wife has been up all day driving. Maybe I should let her sleep and be able to get some rest. But no, you clearly had to have somebody with you all night just so you can be awake. Like, that is utter BS, and that just does not stand in the slightest. I mean, you clearly got pretty emotional when she called you a giant toddler, which, by the way, that's exactly how you're acting. So if anybody ruined your vacation, congratulations, it's you. The way you acted was completely out of line, and your wife absolutely had every right to sleep. I mean, just imagine how she's gonna be during her shift if she literally didn't get any sleep that night and was then asked to drive the car. That's not gonna happen. That's incredibly unsafe, and it's selfish and very self-centered of you to think that this is appropriate in any situation. Am I the jerk for not wanting to share my father's $500,000 estate with the rest of my siblings? So my father gave me his entire estate. Everything was willed to me only, leaving out my 5 siblings. They aren't happy about this, and they are demanding that I split it equally, while also claiming claiming that this is what dad would have wanted. I have been made out to be a greedy villain to our extended family, as they post on Facebook about it constantly. I am the youngest of 6 children, and I have been financially caring for my father for over 7 years now. I also care for an older disabled sibling. My father was very fortunate to own a house, as well as multiple vehicles, and had a decent life insurance payout. I was on the deed to the house prior to his passing. The total inheritance for me was around $500,000 in the house, $60,000 across a couple of vehicles, and $200,000 for his insurance policy, with about $20,000 of that being used for funeral expenses. It was mere hours after he passed away when my siblings began asking about who would get a certain vehicle. My oldest sister also talked about fixing up a few things in the house and putting it on the market to sell it a little bit later. They had no idea I was on the deed for years. Now, the 4 siblings who are upset do not live near us. 2 didn't come to the funeral, and they only visit about once every year for a couple of days. I was aware the entire time that I would be getting everything. It had been this way in our family since I was in my 20s. I still have paperwork from previous life insurance plans that lists me as the payout. My father believed me to be the most responsible, that I would also care for my disabled brother after he was gone. They were quite upset to see I've known this for years and didn't mention anything. I've turned to my disabled brother for support, but he can't really comprehend what's going on, nor does he really care. They have all reached out to lawyers, but mine says everything is pretty solid, since I have immense amount of documentation to show that this was his decision for almost a decade. However, I feel like I'll ruin my family if I keep it to myself. I own a small business and I make a decent living for myself, so I've paid my dad's expenses for years and allowed him to pay his debts instead. I don't see why I should have to share with family members who were never around, nor did anything for him. I've sacrificed relationships, I've sacrificed having children, all of this just so I could take care of my dad. He's been my number one my whole life. So am I the jerk for not sharing in my father's estate with the rest of my siblings who clearly were never there for him? So in my opinion, I don't think you're the jerk at all. Your siblings showed their true colors by not only not showing up to his funeral, but also not being involved at all when he was clearly in need of help. Like you put it best, you gave up everything so you could take care of your dad. And that is seriously a very noble thing to do. And as long as you have that paper trail and you've got that evidence to say, hey, he did this like a decade ago. This isn't something he did right before he passed away, and it certainly wasn't anything that you influenced. If you have all of that evidence, I honestly don't think you're going to be in any kind of trouble. At least that's me. I think you should talk to your lawyer no matter what. But all in all, I wouldn't blame you if you kept this to yourself. You have sacrificed a lot of time and effort just to take care of your dad, and you can bet he's probably eternally grateful for your sacrifice. And I really would just ignore your extended family on Facebook. They're idiots. Because where were they when he was having financial troubles for nearly 7 years? You were the only one to step up and say, okay, I'm going to help you. I'm going to use my small business to try and keep everybody afloat. And you did just that. I don't think there's anything wrong with that at all, in my opinion. And it's something that you absolutely should feel proud of. Not to mention that you were also helping take care of your disabled sibling, something that the rest of your siblings didn't even want to try to do. So if you do decide to keep the estate all for yourself, I personally would not blame you or think that you're the jerk. You did everything you could to take care of your family, and you made sacrifices for your family, as well as any future family that you might have, just so your dad and your disabled sibling could have some kind of life. I mean, look at the way they acted right after he passed away. Literally hours after he was gone, they were already trying to arrange who got what vehicle and what they were going to do to the house just to try and make a pretty penny. And I also really don't think this is the case of like your dad picking favorites or anything like that. You were the one who stepped up to the plate and helped him out. You were there and cared for him for over a decade. Also, everybody else in the family is fully grown and can support themselves. I mean, it doesn't seem like they have no money and that they're completely helpless. So hopefully this all works out for you, because your dad clearly wanted you to have his estate, and it really does not sound like your dad wanted to split it up between your siblings at all. An entitled Karen confronts me outside my new house, guilt-tripping me into selling my house to her son who wanted it instead. And I'm honestly blown away by this level of entitlement. Here's what happened. So for a bit of backstory, back in March, my partner and I bought a house. This was a big deal for us, and we're so glad we managed to pull this off, especially right before the pandemic got really bad. It's a livable fixer-upper, and the lady that lived here before bought it in 1967 and was the only owner before us, and she made no updates in that time. It keeps us busy, and that's worked out really well being home so often. But this is right about when the the entitled Karen of this story steps in and basically ruins my day. In the month of May, my big project was pulling up some nasty bushes that had taken over a huge chunk of the front side yard. It was hot and I was very sweaty. I'm digging out roots and throwing branches away, and as I'm right up front and making a pretty drastic change to the yard, people obviously did notice. Most neighbors stop by and say a quick hello from the car and just drive away, but not this entitled Karen. The entitled Karen pulls up in a shiny black Suburban from the opposite side of the road. She parks the wrong way and rolls down her window. I would say she's in her 50s or 60s. I stand up and pause my music. The entitled Karen then shouts out, "Hey, did you buy this house?" I respond to her by saying, "Yep, we actually just moved in last month." She then inquires if I knew the family before moving in, and I say to her, "Oh, that sold it to us?" "No, not really. We just got lucky that they chose us, I guess." Now, I was just trying to be nice, but also kind of off-put that she's asked none of the typical neighbor questions. I mean, we made a good offer and we got the house. The entitled Karen then says, "Yeah, my son really wanted this house. He grew up in this neighborhood, you know." I explained to her that, houses move really fast nowadays. But the Karen interrupts me and says, "He spent his whole life in this area, and he really deserved to stay in this neighborhood, you know." And after I said that was too bad, I was starting to get a little bit weirded out. Then this entitled Karen drops the weirdest question she's asked so far. She says to me, "So how much did you offer?" Now, for me, not wanting to give her details, I basically just said it was over the asking price and that we are very proactive. But the entitled Karen said that her son really wanted that house. Now, at this point, I'm feeling very awkward about this whole situation, and I'm just looking to shoo this lady along. I say to her, "Yeah, I'm sure most houses will go up for sale around here." This entitled Karen then says, "Well, that doesn't help him now, does it? He had his heart set on that house." At this point, I just shrugged my shoulders and decided to resume my root cutting to try and give her the message that I don't want to talk. "You're probably just flipping it. He would have loved it." But I chimed back in and said, "No, we're not. We're staying here long term." But this entitled Karen didn't believe me. She just said, "Yeah, right." At this point, she doesn't leave. I'm wondering if I should just go inside or something. She keeps looking at me, expecting me to say something, but I just keep cutting at the roots. The entitled Karen then says, "Is it just you, or did your family help you get it?" I responded by getting pretty short in my tone by saying that my partner and I bought it together. The entitled Karen looks over my yard and says, "My grandkids would have loved the yard. A loved yard makes a house a home, you know." At this point, I wasn't even looking up. I said to her, "Well, my dogs will love it too, especially once I'm done." The entitled Karen sounded shocked. She said, "Seriously?" But I just scoffed. I pulled my root out, I threw it on the pile, and I could feel her eyes watching me. Ready for all of this to be done, I looked at her and I said, "Well, have a good day." Then with a last and final glare, she let out an angry scoff and she sped off, leaving a quite annoyed and bewildered me in all my dirty glory, mulling over what in the world had just happened. Did this lady really try to guilt trip me because we bought a house her son wanted? Well, apparently she absolutely did. It's definitely the most unwelcoming interaction I've ever had since we've moved in, but thankfully we have not seen her ever since. That entitled Karen is literally the definition of what passive-aggressive looks like. Instead of making some kind of point about what she's talking about, she decided to dance all around the issue just to try and throw clues down to make you make the assumption that she's trying to say something. And this is all just some stupid tactic just so she can be like, "I can't believe you would think that." Or for her to try and pounce on you and make it seem like it was your idea to begin with. And people who act like that are unbelievably toxic. I can't stand people like that. If you have something to say to me, just say it to my face. That's my mentality. I would much rather have it out in the open than have somebody dance around the issue and pretend like that's not actually what you're trying to talk about. And that's exactly what this stupid entitled Karen was trying to do. She was absolutely trying to guilt trip these people into selling off this house to her stupid son, who, by the way, probably should have just put up a better offer. Like, it's not your fault you got the house. If he wanted it, he should have ponied up more money like you did. The original poster even goes on to explain that they even paid overvalue for the house just to get it. And it's not like this would be an easy fixer-upper either. This is a house from 1967 that hasn't upgraded anything since the original owner bought it back then. So honestly, good riddance to this entitled Karen. She was so far out of line asking those questions, and seriously, she has another thing coming if she thinks she can guilt trip somebody into selling their house. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Am I the jerk for not changing my wedding to be in the United States, as none of my extended family are willing to travel to Canada just to see me married? Here's what happened. So I am getting married at the end end of next month, and the wedding is going to be in Canada. My husband-to-be is Canadian, and that's where we will be living beginning in the fall. I am American, and so is most of my family. My wedding will be about 5 hours away from where me and my family currently live in the States. We already have everything planned and paid for, including the venue for the ceremony and reception. Today, I got several text messages and calls from my dad, my aunt, my uncle, and cousins asking me to change the location of my wedding to be within the United States. I am bewildered at this request, even though I already know my answer is going to be no. Apparently, my 20-year-old cousin got a DUI charge in Canada last year and isn't allowed back into the country because she'll be in some serious legal trouble. Now, I'm not close with this side of my family, nor did I know about this until today. So I reply to my aunt telling her that the venue is already paid for and that I'm not changing my plans. I then get several phone calls and paragraph text messages from my aunt and cousins, basically calling me selfish and that I don't care about my family. I then get a call from my dad asking if we can postpone our wedding and just have it at a city hall near where my parents are living. I tell them no, and mind you, my fiance and I paid in full for our wedding with no help from any of our families. But I get the same response calling me selfish and that no one wants to come to our wedding anyways. So this begs the question, am I the jerk for not changing my wedding destination, all to try and appeal to my cousin who got a DUI, as well as my family who doesn't want to travel to Canada? No, you are not the jerk. You are not selfish for saying, hey, this is where I'm getting married and we've already paid for everything. For them to be like, oh no, but your cousin who's clearly irresponsible got a DUI and now they can't go to Canada. You need to accommodate them. Like, what are we talking about? No, that's not gonna happen. It really does sound like your extended family is full of idiots. And it's probably a good thing that you're starting a new life away from these people. You've already paid for your wedding in full between you and your husband. No one helped you pull this together. They have no say in what you can and cannot do. And if anything, they're just projecting their own selfish attitude onto you, all because this cousin can't go to the wedding. And you know what? They're just using that as an excuse to try and push it so it's more convenient so they can go to your wedding. I mean, they said it themselves. They don't actually care about going to your wedding, and they're probably not going to show up anyways. So I don't blame you for saying, no, we're not going to reschedule everything, because this costs probably a lot of money just to reserve and plan out. And your idiotic extended family absolutely should not and will not have a say in where and when you get married. I overheard 3 of my roommates talking very poorly about me, and at this point, I'm so devastated, I seriously don't know what to do. So I live with 4 people, 2 other males and 2 women. Earlier today, I came downstairs to grab my laundry, and I heard both girls and one of the guys complaining about me. From what I can tell by what they were saying, this wasn't the first time they'd gotten together to gossip like this. It ranged from complaining about little things they don't like about me to things I've done recently, all the way up to making jokes and laughing at me for the way I am. I tend to be on the forgetful side, and I unfortunately don't always pick up on social cues. I've been diagnosed with ADHD, but sometimes I feel like it might be Asperger's or something like it. I've also suffered from depression and anxiety over the last few years. Apparently, there are things about me that have bothered them all year. For example, I used to have a bad habit of leaving kitchen cabinets open. Now, I was never told explicitly that this bothered anybody, but I had been asked a couple of times if I had meant to leave that open or something to that effect. And after that, I'd probably just close it. I can see how this might seem like a reoccurring issue on my behalf, but I don't do it on purpose. I just get distracted while cooking or absent-minded, but over time with a few reminders, I was able to fix the cabinet issue altogether. There were other unsavory remarks about recent incidents, like about how the other day, I accidentally left a candle unattended downstairs, which incidentally, they've also done this several times. Or how I opened the windows to let out a bad smell that they caused, and I accidentally fell asleep upstairs. It started raining while I was asleep, and some water got inside, which they had to clean up. I apologized both times, and I said that it was honestly just an accident, but it didn't seem to help. Admittedly, there has been a handful of things that happened recently, but they've all been accidents. Usually, I'm unaware that's even an issue until somebody brings it up. I never deny or get defensive, but I always apologize and I try to explain. From what they said, they don't feel like I'm sincere whenever I try to explain, even though I am. Over the last 2 or 3 weeks, I have felt like the odd one out. They don't really talk to me or include me in things that they do together. The other day, for example, one of the girls cooked dinner for herself and the others, and they ate together while watching TV. I wasn't offered any or asked to join them. In fact, as I'm typing this right now, they're currently out drinking, and once again, I wasn't invited. I convinced myself I was projecting until I heard them talking today. Until today, I believe these people were my closest friends. My birthday was this past month, and they made me a cake and threw me a really nice surprise party, which I've never had before. We also went to dinner, which was actually the first time I've had friends to go to dinner with for my birthday. I really thought they were my friends, but I can't seem to reconcile that with the sheer level of contempt I heard in their voices. And believe me, I really tried to convince myself that they were just blowing off steam or they were just frustrated, but it's honestly very unlikely with what they were saying. I can't remember verbatim, but it was honestly the kind of stuff that you would say about an insufferable coworker that you hate. The kind of person you know for a fact is saying the exact same things about you behind your back. It's not even that I can't take criticism well. I mean, I am usually the first to admit my flaws, and it's not just what was said, but also how it was said, dripping with disdain and contempt, like I'm the butt of a joke. I would never dream of talking about any of them like that to anyone, much less amongst members of my own household. It feels like they think I do these things on purpose, or that I just don't care, or that I'm just plain stupid for not recognizing how what I do is received by other people. They quite literally called me a bad roommate, and maybe I am, but I really do try my best. I don't know what to do. I'm stuck here for classes until the end of June. I don't know if I should talk to them about it, or if it's even worth it. I'm devastated to find out that people I thought were close to me would secretly feel this way about me. What do I do in this situation? As far as I know, they don't know what I heard, but it still hurts and I'm at a loss of what to do. I think the first thing you need to realize is that for starters, you now know exactly what these people are like. They are not your friends, they don't care about you, and they clearly think differently about you than what they're showing. Like seriously, the way they're acting is so inappropriate. These people are not your friends, they don't care in the slightest, and they've clearly singled you out to be the bad guy in this situation, even though you have not done anything. And you know what? If they were better friends, they would at least have the common courtesy to speak up and say, hey, this thing you're doing around the house, it really bothers me. Can you please fix it in the future? And that literally would have solved all the problems around the house. But instead, they decided to be passive aggressive about it, and honestly, that just doesn't help anybody. But thankfully, you at least know that these are not people you ever want to live with again. They're not your friends, they don't care about you, and this should hopefully be enough of a sign to spur you on and help you find another place to live. And that's totally fine, like you have every right to live where you're comfortable. So if I was in your shoes, I would just tough it out. I would live quietly and just keep to myself, and I would just wait until June comes around the corner, and then I would just privately leave. Because if I'm gonna have roommates, I really would want them to be people who actually care about me, or at the very least, people who are going to be amicable and at least friendly towards me in the face of us living together. Because the people that you're currently living with are absolutely not your friends, and they are also just completely awful roommates. Am I the jerk for telling my neighbor to stop collecting our mail? My family and I are renovating our house, so we've had to move out for a year before moving back. We asked the builders to leave our letterbox, as we don't want to do mail redirection, and we go past the house every 1 to 2 days anyways. About a week after we moved out, the house was fenced off, and the building started to commence. We came by nearly every day, and still there was no mail. After a week of no mail, we contacted the post office, and they said that that's really weird, and that they would check with the postman. The postman then said that our neighbor has told him that nobody lives there, but that they know where we moved to, so he was made to start delivering our mail to her house. After we found out, we went to our neighbor's house, and we told her to please stop that. It's easy for us to collect our mail, and we told the postman to keep dropping it off in our letterbox, and we just explained the situation in general. Around this time, we had some mail turn up at our new address that our neighbor had written our address on and given it back to the postman the next day to redeliver. I was completely baffled. The few times she managed to do this took 3 weeks for it to redirect, even though we only moved 20 minutes away. Finally, I stopped by the house and I straight up told her to stop it. And when I said that, she got offended. She said she was doing it out of the kindness of her heart and making sure nobody stole our mail. I said the only one stealing it was her. Thankfully, she stopped doing it because now she is just straight up angry with us. But now I kind of feel bad about this, so I really need to know, am I the jerk for telling my neighbor to stop collecting our mail? No, you're not the jerk. This lady was clearly out of line. She was taking your mail and redirecting it to your house, instead of just leaving it alone like any other normal person would do. And what in the world was this postman thinking? Why are they letting someone else get another person's mail without confirming with that family in the first place? Like, does this guy want to lose his job? That's so inappropriate. And I think depending on where you're living, I'm pretty sure that's illegal. Like, for example, I can't just go up to the postman whenever I go outside and be like, oh, my neighbor? Yeah, they no longer live there. Give me all of their mail. Like, no, that's not okay. You can't do that. So personally, good for you for putting your foot down and telling this lady to buzz off. You don't need her collecting your mail, and you hit the nail on the head. The only person that's stealing your mail is your neighbor. I would also definitely file a complaint with the post office. There is clearly a rogue postman who's just giving out mail to whoever asked for it. And that, in my opinion, is incredibly weird, and that's not going to help anybody in this situation. I just found out that my boyfriend of 4 years cheated on me 3 years ago, and at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. So I have strict parents. I'm a 22-year-old female, and 3 years ago when I was 19, I wasn't even allowed to drive out of our city because I was too far from them. This is my problem that I've been dealing with and working on with my family. This impacted our relationship because my family never knew I had a boyfriend. My boyfriend said he wanted me to tell them because our relationship didn't feel real. I couldn't travel, I couldn't have a sleepover, or even hang out past 10 o'clock. So anyways, back in September of 2020, he went to Arizona with his friends, and I am a super lenient girlfriend, so I had no problem with that. Long story short, I saw he added 3 girls on Snapchat. He told me he was under the influence, and one of them was a dealer, and I don't know how I believed him, to be honest. Anyways, we fight about that while he is still on this trip, and when he gets back, he breaks up with me. He says my parents are the issue. He feels insecure because he feels I'm gonna leave him for my family, and this just doesn't feel like a real relationship or whatever he was trying to say. In my opinion, he was valid, and he had the right to feel that way. Early 2020, and fast forward, and guess what? He's crying in my car, saying that he messed up and that he wants me back. I tell him that he broke up with me so suddenly that it's hard for me to fully commit. So we're in this phase of talking every day and going on dates, but not officially being back. He says he wants to go back to Arizona with his family and friends for Halloween. I say I don't like the idea because the last time he went, he added 3 girls on Snapchat and then broke up with me out of nowhere. But I tell him that we aren't official, so I guess go ahead. But that was more of a test, to be completely honest. He knows I'm uncomfortable with it, and I wanted to see if he would respect me. But you know what? He went. Halloween is when he cheated on me with one of the Snapchat girls but didn't tell me. And at present day, my parents know and do not approve. But he says that I proved that I chose him. When I told my mother, she had a heart attack. I mean, in the hospital for 4 days, a real-life heart attack. But I moved on and we are happy together. And he is controlling of me, which I hate, but I live with him because I love him. A couple of nights ago, he accidentally told me he was flirting in Arizona. I had a bad feeling and I knew something more happened. So I ignored him for a couple of hours and told him I already know the truth and I'm waiting for him to admit it. I made him swear on my life, and finally he admitted that he cheated on me 3 years ago. I don't know what to do or think now. I feel like our entire relationship was a lie. He stated that he felt like I was going to leave him anyways, and he was insecure that my body count was 2 and he was at 1. What am I supposed to do with this idiotic reasoning? Also, he said that he didn't think our relationship was serious and we weren't together officially. I'm in so much shock that I haven't even cried yet because it just hasn't processed. I don't know if I should break up or if we should even try again. I am completely emotionally numb. Besides the obvious apologizing and whatever he said, a couple of weeks ago, he told me he wants to propose in 2 years. He sees our relationship as serious now and says he can't picture ever being without me. I mean, it's been 3 years since it happened, so yeah, our relationship has changed so much, but it just feels fake to me now. And at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. It really sounds like both of you are not emotionally mature enough to be in a relationship. For starters, he absolutely cheated on you, and he did it at a time where you didn't expect it and you thought you could trust him. So the fact that you're still in a relationship with him, even after all your suspicions are confirmed to be true, is really, really weird in my opinion. Like, you really deserve a lot more out of a relationship than being with some guy who has clearly cheated on you and still strung you along as if he really wanted to be with you. And I think overall, the attitude between the both of you is really, really weird. I mean, your boyfriend at one point was worried about body count, if you know what I mean. And meanwhile, you're going about giving him the cold shoulder and testing him in some kind of way, instead of being honest and open with what your needs are. So I honestly wish you the best of luck with this relationship, because based on what you've described, there's no reason why he wouldn't try and turn around and cheat on you again. And honestly, with all things considered, I think you deserve so much more out of a relationship. A pair of entitled students think they're playing me as a fool, refusing to do their work while also demanding that I give them extensions as well as special treatment. So I decided to get revenge for them thinking that I was an easy class, resulting in them having to be held accountable for their actions. Here's what happened. So a few years ago, I was teaching a private urban religious college. Since I only had my master's degree, I was thankful for the opportunity to teach and get the experience before I moved on for my PhD. The school usually had me teach accelerated night courses, which were aimed on non-traditional learners, which is basically adults going back to school after many years off. I loved my students and had a blast teaching them. I had some issues with a few of them here and there, but generally my experiences were very positive. But there was this one couple, let's call them Hannah and Larry, that's not their real name. That semester, I had been asked to cover a more traditional course at the last minute. Rather than being accelerated, it met 3 times a week for an hour all semester long. Furthermore, it was very small, only about 4 students in total, which would have been fine. Small classes can be great, and a paycheck was a paycheck, but it would have been so much better without Hannah and Larry. You see, this couple had attendance issues, to put it mildly. They would show up to a class or two, and then just up and vanish for a week or more with no word. Just when I suspected they were gone for good, they would show back up, usually with some kind of excuse. Whether it's medical issues or car problems or something with work, you name it, they basically said it. At first, I tried to be sympathetic. I always have the attitude that life happens, and when it rains, it can pour sometimes. But at a certain point, I began to grow a bit suspicious that they were just selling me a story. And honestly, I was immediately suspicious. But I'm usually inclined to let things slide to a certain point. This was all the worse because of the small nature of the class. Every time I did prep for a session, assuming all 4 would be present, they'd skip and throw my plans off. But when I just accepted that they would be gone and prepare activities for 2 students, they would magically show up. All of this would be very frustrating, but acceptable if it weren't for 2 things. For starters, whenever they showed up, these 2 would have an attitude about them and just expect everyone to conform to their presence and bend to their will. And secondly, they of course weren't doing any of the work. And these 2 factors came to a head as Hannah, who was the louder and more confident of the 2, would all but demand for extensions, as well as the ability to hand in their work late. And you know what? I would give it to them, only for both her and Larry to blow the work off again. I like to be pretty accommodating to my students within reason, but it quickly became obvious that Hannah thought she was playing me and could get whatever she wanted, and that simply couldn't stand. I have some level of pride and I hate being seen as a pushover, so I decided to start fighting back. Now, I could have crushed them completely and immediately and just said to them, no more late work, but I was sure that Hannah would just throw a fit and go straight to the school administration. I knew the admin would back me up, but it was a hassle and I really didn't want that. And besides, I'm a pretty easygoing guy, but I do have my limits. I was angry at this point, but I also have a wicked sense of humor. Hannah wants to think she has me wrapped around her finger? Okay, let her think that. I was gonna hand her enough rope to hang herself with it. So for the past few weeks, whenever she asked for an extension, I'd smile and say, sure, go ahead, and then chuckle when nothing came in. Every time I wrote her and Larry emails, reminding them of the new date, which is something I learned from this experience. Get everything in writing. And then we came to the final. I hadn't seen the 2 of them in a few sessions now, and was actually surprised to see them stumble in to take the test. They failed, of course, but I mean, what are you gonna do? Hannah comes up to me in front of the class and asks for another extension. I put my best teacher voice on, and I say that I was disappointed, but it's fine, life happens. However, I was posting grades the next weekend, so the absolute last minute I would accept any late work was Friday at 11:59 p.m. The second it hit midnight, my books were closed. I asked if they both understood, and they summoned up a bit of solemnness when they assured me that they did. Good. I confirmed it in an email and then set back to grade the finals over the week. I mean, there were only 4 of them, it wasn't that much work. I know there was a risk that they'd follow through and I would end up with a semester's worth of work to grade, but I was feeling pretty confident that that wasn't going to happen at this point. Friday night rolls around and I didn't work my second job that day, and my own schoolwork was all done. So I decided to buy a few beers and kick back and play some video games and just relax. I look down at a certain point and I realize that it's midnight. I open my email and I remind everyone that the books are now closed. If I give an extension, it's open to the whole class. I'm not playing favorites. Not that anyone else needed it, to be completely honest. I open up another beer, let out my best supervillain laugh, and went back to my game. Sunday comes around and I'm posting the final grades for the semester. I usually hate failing students, but I have to admit, I had a smile on my face as I assigned Hannah and Larry well-deserved Fs. 10 minutes after I hit save for the grades, I hear the familiar jingle of my email going off. followed by another. Now, who could this be? It is, of course, Hannah and Larry. Larry's email can be best summed up of him saying, "Oh my god, didn't you get my email with the work? I sent it on Friday." Hannah said the exact same thing. Now, it's obvious they're thinking that they can get another day or two to get the work this way. After all, hadn't I been so pliant and naive all semester? But they were absolute fools. They've played right into my hands, and this is the moment I've been waiting weeks for. I double-checked to make sure that I hadn't missed any emails from them, just to be safe. And after checking it over, I didn't get any, so I decided to type my response. I say to them, "No, I didn't. I did just double-check after your last message. That's okay, emails get lost sometimes." At this point, I like to imagine Larry smiling while reading this. He had won again. God, this professor was such an idiot. I continued on. "So what I'm going to need you to do is to go back into the email you sent me with the work. Just take a screenshot which has the timestamp of the email and forward that to me along with the work. That'll prove that you sent it on time." I then responded to Hannah's email saying the exact same thing. What was their response, you might be wondering? Did their eyes widen as they realized that they'd be held accountable for their actions? Did panic set in? Were there tears? Were there howls of regret? The gnashing of teeth and rending of hair? Sadly, I'll never know. I never heard from them again. They didn't even bother making another try. And as for me, well, I decided to buy some beer that night to celebrate once again. Occasionally, I'll tell my students the tale. A humorous reminder that yes, I'm accommodating, and yes, I'm pretty laid back, but also I'm not an idiot. So please, don't try to play me. The original poster really does sound like a good professor. They gave these people every opportunity to prove to them that they are not an idiot. Like they seriously gave them all the extensions on planet Earth. But when it came down to it, Hannah and Larry were just too dumb to do their work, and they seriously thought they had this in the bag. So it's really funny to see that they not only didn't get their work in on time, but they also lied about doing it in the first place, and they literally just ghosted this teacher the second he was like, "That's okay, send a screenshot, loser, do it." Like they had nothing to stand on. They knew for a fact they got caught, and there was nothing they could do to try and fix it. So good for the teacher for not bending completely to these entitled students. They obviously had really terrible work ethic, and the fact that they failed that class is literally their own fault. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. My boyfriend's best friend has been acting very strange towards him lately, and it's making us very uncomfortable, and we seriously don't know what to do. My boyfriend and I have been together for 4 years. He has a friend by the name of Dan, that's not his real name, and he's been friends with him for around 10 years. Dan has a drinking problem, and when I first met my boyfriend, he drank often as well. Pretty much the entirety of their relationship was getting drunk together and watching sports. Half the time, when we go over to Dan's house, he's already drunk. He tries to get my boyfriend to take shots with him, and sometimes passes out while we're watching a game. My boyfriend has slowed his drinking down immensely, and has become an overall healthier person, but Dan has remained the same. It's also important to note that Dan is gay, but is not super open about it. My boyfriend was one of the first people he came out to. Dan has very few friends that live in the area, and my boyfriend doesn't have many friends as well, but does have another best friend who Dan doesn't like for seemingly no reason. About a year ago, I started working for the same company as Dan. We get along fine, so we really never had any issues. However, over the past few months, there have been some questionable interactions between Dan and my boyfriend. The first was with the Super Bowl. For the last few years, my boyfriend was watching the Super Bowl at Dan's house, and this year, my boyfriend decided to throw a party because his team was playing. He invited some friends, including the one Dan doesn't like, so when he told Dan, Dan's exact words were to say that this was the end of an era, which made my boyfriend feel really guilty, and he almost canceled his plans altogether, but ultimately decided to follow through with the party. Dan ignored my boyfriend for some time after that. Then, a few months ago, Dan invited my boyfriend on a 10-day-long road trip for Dan's birthday. My boyfriend wanted me to join, but Dan insisted that we couldn't both have work off for that long, which is true as we are on a small team. My boyfriend tried to back out, but decided to go anyways when Dan told him that he would otherwise have to cancel the whole trip because that was too long to drive alone. Then, on the trip, Dan guilted my boyfriend into paying for expensive meals by bringing up the fact that he'd already spent a lot of money on hotels and a lot of money on gas. It's also important to note that Dan makes a lot more money than my boyfriend and I do, and he knows that fact. Then, a few weeks ago, Dan and I were texting about work. I could tell that he had been drinking, and he brought up the fact that he doesn't have any friends, and I said he had me and my boyfriend, and he responded by saying, "He's in love with you. He only only loves me. He quickly tried to say that he didn't mean anything weird by that, but I ignored the message. Then, a few days ago, he tried to invite my boyfriend over to watch a game and eat dinner. My boyfriend declined because he was tired and wanted to spend time with me instead. Dan asked if he was declining because I work with him, and my boyfriend said no. Dan then said it was weird that he wouldn't want to watch the game with him since they always do that, and that he wouldn't be making the elaborate dinner he was planning because he didn't want to eat alone. My boyfriend felt guilty but irritated because he had just been over to Dan's house a few days ago. I guess I would just like some advice on how to handle this. My boyfriend is pretty non-confrontational, but he is a grown man who can stand up for himself. I'm just becoming more and more uncomfortable with Dan's behavior, but I also don't want to make this weird for us at work. It just feels like he maybe views my boyfriend as his life partner or something. What should I do? Dan is acting incredibly weird. Like, first off, yeah, they're really good friends, obviously, but it does kind of sound like Dan thinks about your boyfriend a little bit more than just a friend, because you put it best, he sees him as a life partner of some kind. This really does go beyond any kind of like basic friendship you might have, or even a really good friendship. It seems like Dan just doesn't even want you in the equation and wants your boyfriend all to himself. And I'm sorry, but that's just not how life works. Also, what is the deal with your boyfriend giving in to everything Dan requests? I totally understand that your boyfriend loves Dan, and he obviously has a good friendship with him, but I really don't feel like that friendship should be at the expense of every other aspect of your boyfriend's life. For example, you two are clearly dating, and it sounds like Dan does not like you in the slightest. I mean, it really does sound like this guy wants your boyfriend to be his best friend, as well as some kind of pretend partner at the same time. And also, his drinking habits are really kind of concerning. So I know if I was at least in your boyfriend's shoes, I would be setting some very clear boundaries with this guy and saying, hey, we are good friends, but sometimes I'm gonna tell you no. And it's not because I don't like you, but it's because I have other things I want to do. And the responsibility of having that conversation really does fall on your boyfriend. You, unfortunately, in my opinion, probably can't do much about this, but your boyfriend absolutely can. And hopefully when he does, Dan is able to see where he's coming and hopefully straighten up his act. Am I the jerk for backing out of paying for my sister's wedding dress after she mocked the fact that my husband-to-be ran off with his mistress and dodged my wedding day completely? Here's what happened. So I had an incident on my wedding day back in 2017 where my former fiance abandoned me and ran away with his pregnant mistress. That image and those details are forever ingrained on my mind, and I'll never forget how I felt that day. This was truly a turning point in my life, and my family has always been there for me, so I kept close to them. My younger sister is currently engaged, and her wedding will be in a few months. She's struggling with money, so I decided to help her, as well as her fiance, and just pay for the wedding dress. This allowed her to be able to buy her dream dress gown, which cost about $7,000. It's a lot for a dress, but she literally cried because she wanted it. A few days ago, before we agreed to go buy the dress, we were eating dinner at my parents' home, and my cousin and aunt were there as well. My aunt was asking my sister about the wedding, and my sister said that everything was going according to plan, and then casually laughed and said, "Let's just hope he won't run away with a pregnant mistress or something like that on our wedding day." Now, when she said that, I was completely blown away. She laughed and my aunt laughed too, as if this was a joke. She was basically mocking me with what happened to me on my wedding day. It happened so fast that I got up and started screaming at her and started calling her an idiot. But my parents asked me to take it easy, and she said it was just a joke and that she didn't think I would react so intensely. My aunt remained seated, and my cousin asked me to calm down and to drink some water, but I grabbed my stuff. And as I was getting ready, I told my sister she was getting $0 for her dream dress, and then I just walked out. I heard a louder commotion as I walked, and my dad and cousin followed me outside, trying to talk to me, but I asked to be left alone. My dad spoke to me later, saying I was too harsh on my sister, and this was all over a joke, and said that I know that this is how her dark sense of humor is. They said she's been crying after I decided to back out of helping her, and said that this will ruin her wedding. They want me to reconsider my decision, since it might damage my relationship with my sister if I refused it. So am I the jerk for backing out of paying for my sister's wedding dress after she mocked and made fun of the fact that my husband-to-be ran off with his mistress? Honestly, I don't think you're the jerk at all in this situation. If my spouse-to-be walked out on me with a mistress I didn't know about, and someone joked about that so casually as if it was okay to talk about, I think I would freak out as well. That is such an inappropriate thing to do. And you know what? Sure, maybe this is just how the sister is. But if you want to play stupid games, you're gonna get stupid rewards. And this is literally literally the consequences of somebody else's actions. And I always hate when people are like, oh, it's okay for them to say these horrible things. Their dark sense of humor is just the way that they are. No, their dark sense of humor is damaging to those around them, and there is no good excuse for that type of behavior. I personally hate it when other people try to justify these horrible, toxic remarks they make and try to disguise this as if this is a part of their personality. And honestly, if that's the case, their personality is incredibly toxic and very hateful, meaning that in my opinion, they're just not a good person. And the sister in this occasion, who clearly thought they could joke about something that was not okay, in my opinion, got exactly what she deserved. Am I the jerk for not wanting my husband's niece to move in with us? So my husband and I don't have any biological kids. 4 years ago, we fostered a girl by the name of Sarah, that's not her real name, who's 19 years old, and she's still living with us after aging out. We're also fostering 3 kids, so needless to say, we have a pretty full household. My husband and Sarah have always had a difficult relationship. They're both pretty stubborn and butt heads a lot. We considered telling her social worker that it wasn't working out so many times, especially in the first year. And this is all because of how often they argued, how stressed the arguments made her, and because he has more of an authoritarian parenting style that she just didn't respond well to. She and I have always been very close though, and she considers me to be her mom. The problem is, since we've started fostering the younger 3, she's had to watch how good of a dad he is with the little ones and gets upset that he wasn't the same with her. It wasn't always rational, but there was a lot of resentment and a lot of jealousy that she's still having to work on. Now, my husband has a niece who's 18 years old who will be on her own this fall. She got a full scholarship from a school that's 10 minutes from us and a school that's an hour away. My husband wants her to move in. He'll get her a car. That way she can go to the school that's 10 minutes away and still obtain financial support from us. But here's the thing. I don't want to do that. For starters, we've already told Sarah that we will not be covering 100% of her expenses. She has a job that pays half of her car payments and insurance, as well as all of her gas, maintenance, and repairs, pays her portion of the phone bill, and is responsible for all of her spending money. Us paying for all of that with his niece would hurt Sarah, and he would have to either admit that he has a favorite, or we would have to fully support both of them. I said if she goes to the school an hour away, in an area with a much cheaper rent, I wouldn't mind sending her some money every month, just to help out with rent and groceries, with the expectation that she has a job and pays for some of her own expenses. He says we shouldn't expect her to be on her own yet, and thinks that only partially supporting her is still too harsh. I told him we can't do anything for his niece that we're not already doing for Sarah, but he thinks it's unfair to compare the two, and says that Sarah should be grateful for what we provided for her, no matter what we get from other people. I don't like how he's going about it, and he thinks I'm spoiling Sarah while abandoning his niece to spare Sarah's feelings. So I honestly just want to see if I'm in the wrong, because at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. I personally think the original poster is absolutely in the right. I mean, despite the troubled relationship that your husband has with Sarah, it would be really contradictory and probably really toxic for you guys to welcome this niece into your home, as well as basically pay for all this stuff when you explicitly told Sarah that no, we're not going to pay for everything. It's gonna come off as if you're choosing favorites, which is definitely not gonna help the situation, seeing as Sarah already feels like she's being left out in a lot of ways. So hopefully you can get through to your husband, because this is not a smart decision on his part, and it's just gonna cause a lot of drama that really is unnecessary. Am I the jerk for not wanting to share my inheritance with my cousins? So I'm a 31-year-old female, and my mom passed away when I was 4 years old. She was 26 when she passed, and my dad has never been in the picture. After my mom's death, her twin brother, my uncle by the name of John, that's not his real name, became my legal guardian. He passed away suddenly 2 months ago. My grandparents started a watchmaking company over 50 years ago. They ran it for over 40 and retired a decade ago, meaning that my uncle took over. When I went to live with my uncle, he just started working for the company full-time after graduating college, and instead of having a babysitter, he would just take me to work if I was not in school. My uncle met his wife when I was 10 years old, and she was very nice to me. They got married when I was 12 and had their first child a few months later. When my cousin was born, things changed. She stopped packing my lunches and other stuff, and I know that she is not my mom, but before she would just look at me with a smile, and after she would barely acknowledge my existence. They ended up having 2 more sons. Anyways, I worked there part-time as a teenager helping out, and my uncle taught me a few things. My uncle took over the company in 2012, and my grandparents gave it to him. He took it from from 145 employees all the way up to almost 1,000 employees in 10 years, even starting a watchmaking school. I went to college and then my uncle hired me as a full-time designer. Time went on and my cousin would work for like 4 hours a week and get a full week's pay, and I've heard all my cousins and my aunt talk about how watchmaking is stupid and that it's too much for something that only tells you the time. This comment in particular is really ignorant, as we don't make only watches anymore, and I thought my cousin paid just enough attention to know that, but it seems like I was wrong. So it never seemed like they were that interested in the company. Back to present day. After my uncle's funeral, my aunt informed me that they were selling the company as it is useless to them, but they were willing to let me make an offer first. I was so heartbroken. I just lost my uncle and was probably going to lose my job as well, because there was no way I could ever get that kind of money. Last week, my uncle's will was read, and all the money was to be divided in equal parts amongst me, my cousins, and my aunt. She got his part of the house, and I got the company. 100% of the company, and they were furious. I now have some friends saying that it's their right to be upset for not getting something they understood they would be getting, and extended family is calling me a thief because it was their father's company, and my cousins texted me saying things like, "Just give it to us," while also saying they're going to be contesting the will and they're meeting with their lawyers tomorrow. They have even said they're going to destroy me for what I'm doing. My grandparents are on my side, but I just feel like I'm being harassed by all these people. What should I do? Your family is super toxic. Like, first off, they didn't care about that company at all, and if you really wanted to keep that going, you really could if you wanted to, but I wouldn't blame you if you didn't want to. When it comes to the will itself, you definitely want to try and get a lawyer, because it sounds like your extended family is probably going to fight tooth and nail to try and get what they want. And while it is unfair for you, that is just the reality of how selfish they are. But hopefully this all works out for you and you're able to find some kind of peace regardless of the result. Thank you so much for watching. We love and appreciate you guys so much. There's a lot of love and effort that gets put into all of these videos, so the fact that it reaches so many different people and so many people really connect with it and vibe with what we're doing, it honestly means so much. So thank you. So please, if you haven't already, go ahead and subscribe to Am I the Jerk. Also, be sure to check out Am I the Genius. I'm not kidding. Those guys are just as hardworking as we are. They are constantly pumping out some of the coolest videos you're going to see on the internet, and I think you should definitely check them out. Thank you again, ladies and gentlemen. We love and appreciate you so much, and we will see you in the next video.